1B, stand by.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get education right now. Go to camera 3. 3, go to the gate. Perfect, just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first. Okay. Go to camera 3. Go to the gate first, just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q, Sophie.
Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
FCPM.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
All right, here we go, guys. We are now live. It is a little bit behind, and I'm not sure what glitch we caught or didn't catch, but we are now live. 8-something p.m. Eastern Time, 5-something p.m. Pacific Time,
5:04 Pacific,
and 7:04 Canal Zone Time. But anyway, guys, it's happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. Ricky, happy Friday to you, man.
Happy Friday, everybody. We had a tricky start, like always, but thank you, like always, guys. Welcome to our weekly happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. It's a Friday night podcast that it's all about the Canal Zone community, and its history, and everything you need to know about the Canal Zone. Like we like to say, we bring the Canal Zone to your living room. Tonight, guys, we have a great show. Willie and I really prepared for this. As you know, Willie has been preparing for this whole month of canal-related shows, and tonight is going to be one with a great guest. Again, guys, a happy hour to celebrate the eighth wonder of the world, a place where everybody knows your name. Also, a place where you can find all the mango heads where they all hang out. So, cheers to us, Zonians, and all our guests and everybody that joins us onward for a great show tonight. You're going to be impressed with our show tonight.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. You know, like Ricky just said, it is Panama Canal Month here at Happy Hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. So all of our shows are featuring something about the Panama Canal itself, you know, not the Canal Zone in general. And so, Dave Dahlstrom kicked it off first of the month with some cool information about where we got a lot of the rock and the sand and everything to actually get started on building the canal. And the name Quarry Heights, where that came from, right? That was a big quarry, actually. And Ancon Hill at one time was all green all the way around. You know, we grew up looking at the face of Ancon Hill and having that sheer rock face on it. But that was because of all the blasting and all the rock they tore out of there to get material to help build the canal. And so obviously the name became Quarry Heights. But, if you look at recent pictures now of that area, that same view from Sosa Hill or whatever, there's a lot less of that rock face. Mother Nature has gradually worked its way back in. And so it's looking more like the original one. But nonetheless, last week we had a great show on excavating and really the early part about it. And that's going to be an exciting segment moving forward on that whole canal project because, we've read books, The Path Between the Seas. We've read, we've seen documentaries. We've seen a lot of stuff on TV. But, some of them have some opinions that we don't agree with, especially, Path Between the Seas had a lot of very anti-American, very almost colonial-like, situations there. And it's neither here nor there whether they're going to discuss opinions or not. But the point is, some of these documentaries you've seen, they also very much touch just on the surface, right? They talk about what a daunting task it was. They talk about some of the challenges they had, but they don't really talk about the actual, all the things that were going on a daily basis, and how they overcame a lot of these things, how they innovated a lot of things, to make this construction possible. Is, the 1900s was in essence the coming out party for America, right? This is when the Industrial Revolution had hit the American shores. We were still right before Henry Ford and the
Model T.
Well, not Model T, the whole format of construction, right? And doing things in that mannerism. That's what the canal ended up really being, is a very much a project of efficiency and not so much of construction, but how to move dirt and how to efficiently support, and it really became, that mass production model, before Henry Ford perfected it. Stevens, Goethals, and to a certain extent Wallace were the ones that really created that model. Just an incredible model that made all of this possible. So I'm excited to keep going with that segment and see how it progressed, because over those 10 years, a lot of things changed. It was really interesting to me to learn, Ricky, that in 1904, for that entire year, that now they had been doing this for a year plus, right? Because they signed in 1903, and in January of 1904 it kicked off, and so there was some things going on, but not to a big extent. But certainly by March and April, things started to kind of start really moving as far as construction goes.
A lot happened during that year.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk a little bit about it on today's anniversary.
But here's what's fascinating to me is that they've gone through all of this stuff, and yet they still hadn't determined whether it was going to be a sea level or a locks canal, which to me is just incredible that you had already, moved forward in that sense and still hadn't made that decision. And I think partly it was because they were really finding out what they had gotten themselves into, right?
Right. Bringing a ship of that size 8 stories high. Next time you guys go around an 8-story building, just think about how they get ships all the way up there.
And big, massive ships,
ginormous ships,
So, but that's that was last week's segment. Today we're actually going to talk about transiting the Panama Canal, and of course a couple other things going on there. Captain Andrew Eftimitis, who joins us on occasion here with the Panama Canal report, is going to give us a report on what's going on with the canal right now. But the big his big keynote, I guess you could call it, is going to be taking us from the anchorage right off of Toboga. Early, and it's still dark out actually, and the ship gets underway and gradually starts making its way through that channel into what's called the Balboa Reach. You're going to learn about that as it works its way through the old locks, right? Not the new locks, the ones that we grew up, being familiar with, Miraflores, then Pedro Miguel, the lake, Culebra Cut, and then Gatun. We're going to also find out why you had 3 chambers in Gatun all the way down from top level to sea level.
8
and
stories.
On the Pacific side, you had it separated into 2 sets in Miraflores and Pedro Miguel. There's a specific reason why they had to do that, which we're going to find out here now as well. So, but this is going to be really cool, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun to learn about the Panama Canal. A lot of things that function there. There's a lot of moving parts here to get that ship from one ocean to the other. A lot of rules and regulations that take place. Things that take place hours before that even kicks off, even days before, that there's certain things that have to be done. So it's going to be really interesting to find that out here. And again, Captain Eftimitis is joining us to go over that and talk about that. He does that on a daily basis. In fact, this morning he was actually on a ship. If you saw our promo video on social media today, that was as fresh cut as you could get, because he had just sent me that, maybe 30, 40 minutes before we put it out there. So he was on a ship at that point, getting familiar with the canal. And no, he could probably transit that canal in his sleep. So
left-handed too.
Yeah, right. Left-handed, forward and backward. Next week, Jim Duffus is going to join us and talk about the Gatun locks. Everything that goes on there, how they operate, what the processes and procedures are there, what it was like to be a person working, on the locks and showing up every day, and your office was the Gatun locks, right? And so that's going to be cool. And then, of course, at the end of the month, we're going to have the Cohen brothers joining us, and another canal support operation here with Maurice Cohen, similar to what they did with the Nimitz previously, and what they do with a lot of ships, including repairs, replenishment, and a lot of different things that they help supply these ships while they're using the canal. And then his brother David Cohen, who's a tugboat captain, and he's going to show us the other end of things from what we're doing today, because we're going to be on the ship today with Captain Eftimitis, and then we'll be on a tugboat in a couple of weeks with Captain Cohen. So a lot of exciting stuff, guys. Pan Canal Month is really awesome. It's going to be all about this beautiful waterway that made our canal zone and us Zonians all possible. So, but we got a couple other things to do before we take care of that. And by the way, there is a world premiere of a new Howler Monkey Sauce commercial. So that should be exciting as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and do our say hello to a couple of folks here, and then we'll get some announcements. And Ricky's got some entertaining tales for us here. So, Jim Bradley and Jim and Diane, how are you? Good to see you. Having a severe drought, and we do actually, and well, it's my understanding that starting Sunday, pretty much all of Central Florida, from the West Coast to the East Coast, is supposed to be getting a ton of rain for the next few weeks. So hopefully that'll take care of that. Dave, what's going on, brother? Good to see you on the other side, right? AXA, in a sense, right? This is the other side, but the other side in the media world, right? That's what that is there. Leaf, where's Leaf at here? I just saw his name up there. Yeah, good to see you there, Leaf. Leaf sent me a picture. I'll see if I remember to pull it up here. He has his license as a Panama Canal licensed. I guess you can call it a pilot. Whatever he said that was the youngest canal pilot. We'll see, but nonetheless, that's kind of cool. You had a license to operate vessels on such an important waterway. Kind of a cool thing to have, I guess.
Yeah, no, he was always involved with all that. Him and his dad, I think from a very young age, was always either building something with his dad out there at the spinning club, or So him having that license at a young age.
Well,
totally
and Mr. Solin is an avid model railroader. And we've actually mentioned that with Captain Eftimitis a little bit, because we are looking for somebody that is adept at creating those dioramas, that really has some expertise. And if you want to do that, that's something you want to reach out to Andrew on social media. Let him know what you're able to do. Show him some of your work, and
we're going to touch a little bit on that tonight too.
Yeah, when he joins, he's definitely going to talk about that. The way the transit piece is going to be set up, we have a lot of infographic backdrops like we do now, but we're also going to have a 40-minute video of the transit. And so as that video runs the entire time, we're going to be talking about different things, leading up, to that full transit, right? Let's talk about.
And if you have any questions, this is the time.
Absolutely. So it's going to give us 40 minutes to talk about a lot of things there and interact with you guys. So it should be good, and then we'll know everything there is about the canal, and there'll be a test next week. So if you pass it, you will be a licensed canal pilot. You can actually go down there and now operate ships and everything just from watching this show. So just keep that in mind, because that's going to be a lot of fun. But Eric, good to see you, man. Appreciate your
Eric, what's up?
And look there's Leaf commenting, Captain at the age of 15. Okay, there we go.
Right on, Leaf.
See, that's how it works, man. I'll see if I can pull that thing up here. I'm trying not to mess anything up, because we've had a couple of
close calls. Yes, I'm not even touching anything. My hands are in my pocket, man.
Yeah. So, but nonetheless, we'll wait. Good, Mark. Happy Friday.
Hey, happy
I'm
Friday,
close
Mark.
to releasing the Canal Zone. Awesome. Hey, listen, Mark, tomorrow I'll reach out to you if you have some time, and I want to share that site with you and let you beat it up and give me some feedback on it, and hopefully it'll help with creating some cool music videos for you. So, but anyhow, let me know if you're available tomorrow, just for a few minutes, just to chat a little bit and let you try it out for me. But anyhow, let's get some announcements and stuff going here.
SCN Television presents K Pasa. And now here's this evening's host, Army Sergeant Bob Foster.
Good evening and welcome to K Pasa. We've got two guests tonight. First Sergeant First Class Jim Webb. Sergeant Webb's with the 27th Military Police Detachment. He's the kennel master.
There we go. We're getting Andrew on here with just a little bit of again glitching up a little bit here, but there we go. Andrew, how are you, man? Captain Andrew Eftimitis, everybody.
Good, Andrew.
What's happening? Can you hear us? Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I have you muted. My bad. Go ahead and hit your unmute.
You can't get fresher news.
There we
go.
Yes.
You cannot.
No doubt.
You come here for absolutely up-to-date news on the Panama Canal. And speaking of news, guys, let's get into some boaching news, or you want to go into some announcements first?
We can at least say hello to our guest here first. I'm just thinking, at least, say hello to him and chat and say what's going on and all that good stuff. But Andrew, how's it going, man? You look nice and freshly clean, because you are somebody who just came from the Atlantic Ocean, arrived at the Pacific Ocean, and then turned around and joined our show. How about that?
Yeah, I got the same shirt on from the advertisement, and it's just amazing the times we're living in, and here on Happy Hour at the Yacht Club. Well, first of all, hello to my brothers, Ricky and Willie. Love you guys,
Right back to you, brother.
I'm just overwhelmed right now with a bunch of things that are going on. I'm excited, overwhelmed. But it's amazing, talking about freshness and how fresh our information is and up to date. And if you look at, what you guys have put together, it's straight out of, it can't get any fresher. I just got out of the out of the canal. I just
Right.
got home. A little bit of traffic. I boarded on a partial transit, but ended up being 10 hours.
Wow.
But I boarded in the lake and disembarked here at just at the south end of Miraflores. So it's amazing the technology. You know how we can send information, receive information, and I'm just very pleased and honored to share what we have, this great canal, and all the information and that I can provide. So tonight, I'd like to encourage everybody to ask questions, to be a participant, because there's things in there that I might not even think of mentioning, or that people have questions or queries. Please, I'll do my best to dig in deep, and I'll tell you what. Uh, Maybe like Ricky said, we'll touch base on it a little bit later in the show. I've been researching a lot lately, and working in the canal has just opened my eyes. Uh, at the beginning of my career, I read The Path Between Seas like most people did, but now I am getting into some real deep
Yeah.
research, and there's just some amazing facts out there that
Were
I'd
you
love
able
to
to look at
show.
that notebook that I sent you? Did I send you the notebook or did I forget to send it to you?
I didn't receive any notebook.
Okay, it'll come into WhatsApp. I'll send it to you. Notebook. It's a Notebook LM. It's an AI research tool, and I've got some stuff on construction that are just incredible on just real minutia and detail on the actual construction, excavation. You know, the train routes and operations. Just, I mean, it's unbelievable. I've got a couple of audio overviews, which you'll probably enjoy on some of your long commutes, you know, because it probably takes you 45 minutes, an hour sometimes to get, you know, from one end to the other. And you just listen to these audio overviews. They're amazing, man, to listen to. And just, I mean, it totally takes you back to 1905, 1906, and being actually on one of those spoil trains, you know, making that run from Culebra over to Balboa or to Gatun and everything involved. It's fascinating, man. But anyway,
But anyways, before all that happened, which is some of the history we like to cover here, is what was going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
From 1902, 1903,
Yep.
1904, and it was just as amazing as all the great stories you hear of of what you hear out there on the canal. But
yeah, no kidding,
we
man.
researched the stuff that was going on the sides,
And important point that you brought on. What did it take to build the canal? We have a museum down here in Casco Viejo. There's the visitor center, and all that we know now is what we see in front of us is a ditch filled with water.
Correct.
But back that up over 100 years, and there is some amazing
wheeling
things
and dealing
that were going on behind the scenes that I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
And it needs to be brought to light.
The amazing part of that construction wasn't the ability to take a steam shovel and pull up that tonnage of rock and dirt. It was really the ability to organize such a massive operation where they had things timed down to the second, down to the minute. You had trains that were literally a 20-car train they would not actually stop to get filled up. You know, most of what we see is still footage, right? And when you see that, you see the steam shovel in that row of trains there, and everybody assumes that the train stops, they fill up that car, and then move up to the next one. No, that thing moves the whole time like a sushi conveyor belt. And it's actually being filled by about 2 or 3 steam shovels at once. And once it's all full, it moves out and another one moves in right behind it, and off they go to dump. And that's the only way you could continue to do this was that whole operation. And it's absolutely fascinating. And what you're doing, Andrew, with that diorama and that miniature excavation, it really is going to allow somebody to truly appreciate what that looked like, especially for a Zonian who may have been to, you know, the lookout up in Empire there, you know, been out in Gamboa and been out and seen the locks and stuff. And you see the size of that, and you can appreciate what that hill and that mountain was and the amount of work that it took to knock that thing down and cut right through it, because it's amazing.
Yeah,
man.
the
It's
dredgings
amazing.
definitely weren't the pretty boys, but they did all the hard work.
Well, and the steam shovel operators were one of the highest paid people on that operation.
Oh, the chief engineer definitely was
the chief
top
engineer, but I'm saying that as far as your labor pool goes, the people that operated the steam shovels were the rock stars. They were the ones that they competed. They were in the newspapers every week who had shoveled the most, and they were paid a lot of money because it was a very and we're gonna learn how that whole steam shovel worked. And I mean, dude, you got to know what you're doing, man. It was not easy to maintain that and do 7 fills in 1 minute. Think about that, right? And you're dropping rocks that weigh 2 and 3 tons. You can't just willy-nilly drop it. It'll wreck the train. It's got to be set down precisely where it needs to be, one after the other all day long. And it was. Anyway, we've digressed, man. Let's get some bochinche and some stuff from Ricky, some announcements, and then we're gonna transit the Panama Canal, guys.
No, listen, today was an incredible day in history. If you guys all remember Victoriano Lorenzo, how can you not know him? That's just a big part of the Panamanian culture and history.
If you remember when when they took over the zone, or they started to, going out to Amador, that division of the Panama Defense Forces was called Victoriano Lorenzo. They had their signs all along that road going to the causeway.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Well, they finished them off today, was the anniversary right there. And the thing about it was that it happened, May 4th is when the canal took over, when the United States took over the canal, right? They got the keys.
Right.
2 weeks later, May 15th, in the same plaza, that's when he got executed. So, a lot of going on in there. So who was Victoriano Lorenzo? Well, he was actually, guys, Colombian, of course, right? And he was he fought the 1,000-day war.
Sure.
And he was
on what would be the Panama side eventually, right? I guess you could say.
Not really. See, this is the stuff that I found out doing some research. So
scurvy dog.
He never called himself a Panamanian. He called himself a Great Colombian.
Okay.
But he was like a guerrilla fighting on the liberal side. The liberals had
that's what I mean. And those guys eventually would become Panama.
Right. Okay, but this is where all this is happening. We're talking about the canal that people don't know of all the things happening in the background. Okay. So right when the U.S. was getting their keys, what happened was there was him and Belisario Porras, who's a big name in Panamanian history. He was actually a president. Those guys had militias, and they fought on the liberal side. And the two liberal generals that were in charge were Esteban Huertas, which we've heard that name,
right,
and Benjamin Herrera. There's even a province named after him. And so Victoriano Lorenzo was on their side, taking on the conservatives. Right. So when the war was over, Victoriano Lorenzo was for separation. You're right about that. He was for separation. But the Colombian generals were not. They were against that. Okay, so right there was a need to get rid of him. But the real reason they got rid of him, guys, was right before all this happened in maybe late 1902, there was what they called the last stance, which was a fight in Panama called the scrimmage was called El Puente de Caledonia, which was the last fight between the liberals and the
wasn't that where the bridge was to the old Casco Viejo and the
No, that's a different one. This is in Caledonia. Okay. So what happened was Belisario Porras and Victoriano Lorenzo went to go to the with the Colombian liberals to go fight this last battle. But Belisario Porras and Victoriano Lorenzo both said, "Listen, guys, we're outnumbered and we're outgunned. Let's back off and live to fight another day." So Belisario Porras and Victoriano Lorenzo pulled their troops. And the Colombian general said, "F that, I'm going in." And of course, they got massacred. So Victoriano Lorenzo was then, by Esteban Huertas, was looked at as a traitor.
Sure.
And that's why they killed him. Now, Huertas...
And this was after the ceasefire, wasn't it?
Well, it was 1903, so yes, it was after the
secessions
ceasefire.
had ended, which was why the whole controversy was, wait a minute, why'd you kill this guy when we had already kind of agreed on...
Well, he had... and here's something else I found out. the only reason why he was executed so fast was because Victoriano Lorenzo, remember back then, war rules was the way you fought. You know,
Right.
you held your lines, you followed all these rules. Well, he didn't follow any of the rules. He never took prisoners, and he would chop their heads off. And so he chopped the general's head off, and that was a no during
payback
that
is what
time.
he got there, basically.
Yeah, he got payback is what it was. But see, these are things that this show, the research we do is to find that information.
Right.
Not the typical, he's Panamanian, he's on our penny. That's the reason why he's on the penny.
Right, not
Because
the
he was
headlines.
because he wasn't Panamanian. But he was for the separation. But the deal with him was that they didn't trust him because he was more Colombian than Panamanian. So he was actually, see, that's there's two sides to that story. Some people say that he would have not gone for the U.S. In other words, he would have kept up his guerrilla tactics with the U.S. there. And others say that he was, against. So there was a lot of reasons, and a lot of people wanted to X him out.
Sure.
Well, today was that day.
Well.
So again, we like to give you history.
How'd you get on the penny, man? You get your head lopped off for doing something. You know?
Well, yeah. So that's the story. Belisario Porras at that time.
Victoriano Lorenzo, man.
Yeah, salute to him and all the work he did, because he did fight hard on the liberal side, and he did a very good job.
Right on.
But they wanted him gone.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, listen, that's what happens when you lop people's heads off. They tend to get a little pissed off. So, and they hold grudges, right?
Yeah.
So
what else happened today? Well, we got news from the Panama Canal, and Andrew, this is all your sleeve. Revenue up 10 to 15%, and mostly that's from all the oil going through from Texas going through the Asian market. So. Sure. Andrew, and the question that I had, I'm going to go ahead and forward it now, is, man, 41 transits versus 34 or so before, that's like 7 more additional pilots on a daily basis. Where are you guys getting that workforce from? Within,
overtime.
or are you guys hiring out?
Getting some overtime.
Or is it all overtime?
The rotation is quicker. That's it. We're all in a rotation. So instead of 12-hour, let's say, get a 12-hour shorter rotation, which means instead of having X amount of hours off between jobs, it'll be shorter.
Right. Okay.
Got you. So so instead of work one day and get 12 days off, you guys work one day and get 6 days off.
No, we don't.
1 day. 12.
That's how Canal pilots were known, man. You guys were known of working so many months, and then you would get this big, ginormous time off, and then you guys would come back.
6-4 originally, 6 weeks on, 4 weeks off. Now it's a 5-3, and now it's been modified for the tercer edad.
That's us.
You have an option: work even time 4-4, or work 3 weeks on and 5 weeks off even. So there's a variety, but that's for
of options, right? Okay, all right. Well, yeah, so transits are way up, which means GDP is going up. Panama, with all the bad news that you've heard lately, they still got 5% growth in the gross domestic.
Are you mentioning anything about Copa Airlines?
Well, yes, I will. All
Okay, then I won't touch
GDP is all goods and services produced within your borders, right? And in Panama, with all this stuff going on, we still grow. Now, what is the 3 biggest money makers in Panama? Like we've said before, the canal, number 1, the ports, number 2, and the airports. But what's keeping this growth at 5%, guys, is manufacturing. Restaurant, meals, and drinks, and that has to do with the uptick in tourism. Legal, medical, and construction professional services, way up. Tech products. Panama's making tech products now, and that has to do with a deal they have with the U.S. government, and they're producing chips and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, government spending. So Panama's 5% increase, even though for Panama that seems like low, it's still, those are not low numbers. Those are great numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the airport. Copa has created the hub of the Americas in Tocumen. And just recently, the numbers came out of all the airports from Mexico in the Latin American market, from Mexico all the way down to Argentina.
Yeah.
Number one airport that has the most people going to, Tocumen.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, Cancun. Number three, the Mexico City.
Sure.
Number four, Brazil, and then Colombia, number five. But Panama,
Wow.
number one. So we've become the logistic capital of the Americas.
It is, absolutely.
Between the canal, the ports, and the airports. But tourism being so much high, gone up, a lot of it has to do with the cruise ships, and Andrew can talk about this as well. Some 200 and some freaking cruise ships are docking in out there on the causeway. And this is creating a boom for the museum industry, which Andrew can also
Captain, let me
talk
ask
about.
you, when you bring those cruise ships in, do you guys take them all the way around the islands and then dock them? Or is that something that they do?
That's a different organization that does. So we get off at the just north of the sea buoy, and so once we disembark, another organization. And by the way, I think a few of those guys actually work in the canal, and so they
It's a sweet contract.
yeah, it's an outside organization that brings the ships into that port and out to Melones and Tabugia and ship to ship. Actually,
is that the same thing that Maurice does?
What's that?
Well, like that support for the ships? Is that part of that gig, like what he did with the Nimitz?
No,
Maurice
no.
Cohen?
Talking piloting, strictly piloting.
Okay, gotcha.
A Marine pilot on board and take them to the pier, take them to the fuel docks, out at the Melones, which is at that oil terminal, and there's another one in Tabugia. So that takes a pilot and a local pilot, but I'm not up to date on what the pilot organization. I know there's several of them out there.
Right.
I know people that are part of those organizations, but I also understand that they do fly in. This was interesting. I heard they fly in pilots that do offshore ship to ship transfer. So somewhere, maybe in the EEZ of Panama, they're conducting ship to ship transfer of fuel oil, and those, from what I understand, are pilots from out of the country that fly in for specific contracts to do that, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it. Sounds like a very lucrative contract.
Yeah.
Maybe you former canal pilots can get in on that deal.
Yeah.
Well, you're not a former, but the other guys. Well, listen, guys, this has created an incredible uptick in tourism, the cruise ships. And what that has done has put the Bio Museum at the Causeway into one of the most major attractions, not only of Panama, but of the world. Because so many people are going there, and if it's right there where they drop off. Now, they say there's three reasons why this museum is just becoming a world attraction. It's one, cutting edge architecture. As you guys know, the master of the masters designed that, Frank Gehry, who, by the way, married a Panamanian, just like our ambassador did.
How about that?
And then there's also what really attracts people, what really blows them away, according to what I read, is the mega diversity of Panama's ecosystem. It blows people away how huge our biodiversity is in Panama and how it all works together. You take one little thing out, that thing all falls apart.
Sure.
Maybe not, but they say. And then the other reason is for the hands-on experience that no other museum out there is putting out there. So those three things: cutting-edge architecture, mega diversity of the ecosystem in Panama and your hands-on experience have created that as one of the most major attractions worldwide, including Panama.
And you know, and one other thing, when you're talking about Copa Airlines and all this growth and how well things are going in Panama, they just, you know, Copa Airlines is they formed a parent company, Grupo Copa, and you know, one of their other airlines is Wingo, which is a smaller carrier they bought from Colombia. It was a Colombian airline.
I've heard of them.
So they own a couple of carriers, but bottom line is that they just announced their first quarter profit was $212 million. So it's just amazing the growth there, and that again, like you mentioned, is part of it is of course that success with the cruise lines, and also remember something we talked about last year, especially when coming up on the Canal Zone reunion, was that, you know, Copa Airlines and the government of Panama was saying, hey, we got a bunch of people using our airport, but it's just to change planes. We want them to stay here, and they were offering all these great deals for people to stay there, and so, you know, maybe that's starting to pay off as well, where people are actually making Panama the destination.
Oh yeah, the numbers are already higher, you know, for this year, way higher. Now, speaking of the airport, there was you know, I have to research social media a lot to get news and whatnot, but there was Panama Tocumen Airport. It's not only known for the hub of the world, I mean of the Americas, but they have this dog patrol, guys, where the Panamanians, they, you know, we're all used to seeing at the airport, you know, the big dogs, right? The shepherds, all the bigger dogs, right? Well, Panama Airport, they figured out that they can train all the little tiny dogs, you know, and even the Tinakers, and especially the Tinakers, and they're out there trying to catch prohibited food from coming into the country, because everybody travels with a little food, right?
And for those of you guys that are wondering what Ricky means by Tinakers, okay, that's some Spanish offshoot of tinaqueros, which is basically dogs that rummage in the garbage, the strays.
The strays.
So
they
use it as
train
English, right? Spanish and English, so it was Tinakers. So that's now you know what he's talking about.
Tinakers. So I'm gonna see from Panama, I guess. Oh. Well, they train them, Willie. And you're talking. So you're seeing all these tiny dogs.
I want the Ricky. Andrew's saying something. Go ahead.
We can't hear you, Andrew.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
I heard that the name came from the name of the company that was on those
trash
on the trash can. That's what I heard.
Yeah, no, I heard that story too. We should look into that.
I remember using Tinakers as a kid. We used to, my brother and I used to call them,
I thought it was from Tinaqueros. You know,
that's what I always.
But I think Tinaqueros is actually a company, Andrew was saying.
They may have saying, hey, this is a great term. People use it, understand it.
Well, of course they're going to use these dogs because those dogs can sniff anything. And this year alone, they caught 670 pounds of illegal food coming into, you know, saving our diversity, which is what we just spoke of. So right on to the Tinakers of Panama, man, and all the little dogs. And Willie, they all wear these vests, right? And then they got the Panamanian flag right here in the front, man. So these little dogs cruising around all over.
Oh yeah.
And last but not least on the Canal news is Nicaragua just paid out $250,000 to some engineering firm for the Nicaraguan canal. 10 years later, they're
still. They're trying to.
So somebody
that boat left, man.
Somebody just got a $250,000 check. That was the big. You know, that news comes from UHN Financial News, and which is probably, you know, from where. Coming out $250,000. Some engineering firm just got that.
Luck with that.
Nicaragua news. All right, Victoriano Lorenzo. Okay, let's go into a little bit of social expat news. Oof, expat news always good, but this one was pretty gnarly, like they say. A murder fugitive living 30 years in Panama was just caught and sent right back to the U.S. 30 years in the expat community.
Wow.
Guy went by the name of Joe Allen Stavros. So if you guys knew a Stavros, that guy was a fugitive, 30-year.
Okay.
All right. On a good note, our fellow Canal Zonian, John Carney, I believe he's a class of 76. I might have gotten that wrong. 75 or 76. He is a guitar player. And he plays smooth jazz every Sunday up in Coronado at this place called The Bench. He'll be there the 17th this Sunday, playing from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
So if you guys are out there, all you expat Zonians out there, go check them out. The Bench in Coronado. And speaking of expat Zonians, there's an expat company out there called thevisitorpanama.com that our documentary Zonians spoke of. So if you guys can find that website, there is a story there on what the Zonians are, who the Zonians were or are, because we're still here. Last but not least, because
again, last but not least, this is the real.
No, but the last one was last Canal Zone news. This is last Bochincha news, sports, because this is the big month coming up, guys. So the 31st of May, Panama team's getting ready for the World Cup. World Cup starts June 11th, so that's only in a couple of weeks. So the first game we have before, for the warm-ups, we're playing Brazil, which is good because, they're going to test the boys. And then that's the May 31st. Then June 3rd, a couple days later, we play the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
Which, it makes sense that they want to play us because that is an upcoming team and, the number one
typically
team.
What they'll do is they'll set them up against a country that plays in a similar style to one of their opponents. Because you want to be able to see, you're going to face this formation, this tactic. You want to practice for it.
Well, the Dominican Republic, okay.
Maybe a formation they run that may be something that Croatia or Ghana runs. And so
they're playing, and then the week after that game on June 6th.
Countries that are asking for these people to play with as well. So remember, you're competing against a bunch of other countries to get these friendlies set up. So it varies, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I think that was the replacement game, Willie. They were supposed to play Italy, remember? And then Italy backed out?
No, because Italy qualified.
Because Italy qualified.
Yeah.
And then these guys step in.
He didn't. Yeah, never mind. But anyway, yeah.
And then June 6th, they play Bosnia, which is equivalent to playing
Croatia. Similar style.
So you're right on that. So they're playing Brazil, Dominican Republic. I don't know why I put Republic first. Dominican Republic second, and then Bosnia third. And then June 11th, the following week is when the World Cup begins.
I'm excited. I'm heading out the 21st. Sunday the 21st, I go to Toronto. My son and I, Beckham, are going there. And on the...
Your son's name Beckham?
Yes. Beckham Benidorm. Yeah, I was watching a Manchester United game, and we were 8 months pregnant, and my wife's like, "Hey, we need to come up with a name, man. He's coming around the corner here." And I happened to be watching a United game, and I was like, "Let's name him Beckham Hunter Benninghoff." She's like, "I love it." I'm like,
"That's a great name." No, that is a great name.
Yeah,
Beckham, man. Toast to Beckham.
Yeah, salute, man. So I'm excited though because the 21st we head out to Toronto. And we'll be there for 5 days, and we catch the game on Tuesday. The Tuesday game between Panama and Croatia should be an awesome game. I'm looking forward to watching that, and then come home Thursday, do our show Friday, and watch some more soccer from here in Tampa. Panama then plays England. That's going to be a great game, and Panama's playing Ghana. So I'm excited, man. I'm really looking forward to this World Cup. It's going to be a great time. And like you said, man, it's less than a month away, man. But
yeah, next week, all the preliminaries start.
Yeah,
a week of that. I mean, there's going to be some good games.
Yep, it's time to start following that.
And then it's soccer time, guys.
Mm-hmm. So, well, good deal, man. Well, listen, we're going to pay some bills here. And Andrew, you get to be on our show tonight when we're debuting a new Howler Monkey Sauce commercial. So we're going to throw that on here real quick, and then we will switch gears and take that long-awaited northbound cruise or transit. I'm not going to call it a cruise. It's not a cruise. It's a transit through the Panama Canal, through the original Panama Canal, mind you. Miraflores locks, Pedro Miguel locks, Culebra Cut, and Gatun locks. So anyway, stand by, Andrew. We're going to get you on here in just a moment here to talk Canal.
Where can I find El Fulo?
He's out there catch waves. Hey, Fulo! Fulo! Oh yeah, I know food. I'm a Steel Chef winner. You know the food competition?
Really?
Yeah, look. Check out this video of my win on YouTube. The secret ingredient? Frozen shrimp. I'm gonna blow their minds. They're gonna be like, how did he do that?
Microwaved?
Trust me, dip it in the Howler Monkey Sauce Verde, you'll be blown away.
I love the balance of the garlic with the tang of the vinegar. I mean, it's classic,
That's why it works so well with seafood.
Yeah. This combination of green habaneros and green bell peppers, it transforms the shrimp. Wow.
You were right. Dipping it in the verde howler monkey sauce, the combination of cilantro and sweet onions, man, that made a zero a hero.
Do you know a howler monkey who can describe the sweet heat of our original, with authentic ají chombo peppers, or the fresh punch of verde, where habanero warmth meets crisp bell pepper? How about the bold tang of Amarillo, yellow Scotch bonnets blended with mustard seeds? And of course, our hot, the same great flavor as original, fired up with red habaneros for that fire. Our sauces are all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, pure flavor and pure fire. Are you the next Howler Monkey spokesperson?
So, guys, so we are now on our Panama Canal transit piece. Andrew's moving around from one studio to the other, so we're going to get a little bit of a glitchy going on here, but he'll be situated here in just a moment. But what you guys see here is a view of course, our backdrop, all our information that we're going to talk about this transit going from the anchorage on the Pacific side all the way through up to crossing the breakwater and out into the Caribbean and everything in between, because there's obviously a big story in between there. Right below us there, you'll see where. Thank you. That was cool. Yeah, that was exciting. I love doing this whole AI stuff. It's a lot of fun. Next one is coming right around the corner because I was batching them together. I'll get the next one ready here shortly. But anyhow, below Ricky there, and below the buy us a beer QR code there, which, by the way, feel free to scan that, guys. If you want to buy us a beer, we certainly would appreciate it. But that there is a video of a 40-minute cruise. And it's going to... Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't see you. Okay, now I can see you. There you go.
Oh, there I am.
So, and the thing, and Ricky, just be mindful of this when Andrew, he's on speakerphone. So a lot of times as we're talking, it'll cut off his microphone. So if we're talking and he's trying to talk, it'll just completely mute him automatically. So just be mindful. If you see him, saying something, we need to stop for just a moment or whatever the case is. So just something to keep in mind. But anyhow, so this is going to run for about 40 minutes. This video of this canal cruise, okay, and again, it starts on the anchorage here, right out of Toboga. And Andrew, go ahead and kick it off from here and tell us what what basically we go through as far as that start goes. A couple of interesting things that I learned doing this research was that there's certain regulations that these people got to go by before they permit that ship to even enter the waters of the canal. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And quite a lot of regulatory conditions that the ship has to meet, as you mentioned. And, that's an interesting thing. What I was thinking earlier a couple days ago was I'd be curious as to how other ports in the world, other pilots, what regulatory bodies do they have? I know in the States, the Coast Guard plays a big role. But other ports around the world, what system do they have to safeguard their waterway? And I want to tell you that the Panama Canal is one of the leading companies in safety. And the way they go about doing, and actually innovative stuff has come about. For example, let me give you an example. We have a blue steering light that was invented, produced, and regulated here in Panama. I don't know what year, but we'll have to figure it out. And when you go on any ship around the world, or most of the ships, that are over 500 tons, it'll say Panama Canal steering light, and that's the blue light. How the color came about, the intensity or whatever, I'm not sure, but something interesting. But people around the world use it. And what is the blue steering light? At nighttime, it may be very dark, and you lose sight of the bow. And so to visually be able to use a fixed reference, that blue steering light helps the pilot determine the rate of turn, which is pretty much half of the battle in ship handling. You know,
Kind of
you
similar to what you see sometimes
control
with
that rate of turn.
You know, sometimes with 18 wheelers, you see that at the front of them they have that little rod with a little light on it, so they can see just that front corner to turn, just for better visibility. Obviously, this is much bigger, but it gives you that reference point of where the front of that ship is, because I guess it's more common than not, as you see in that image there, that your bridge is typically at the back of a ship, right? Because that's where you're steering.
Exactly. Yeah, and we'll touch about that. And as I tell all the captains, you know, is the Panama Canal is about towability, visibility, boardability, and I had the fourth one, and I can't remember what the fourth one was. But those are the four things. The vessel has to be able to be towed. A lot of towing goes on in the Panama Canal.
Right.
People don't realize that. So that means chocks and bits, lines, all that has to do with towing a vessel, tying up a vessel, ground tackle, which talks about anchors, that has to be in order. Of course, your engines and steering, rudder angle indicators.
Well, real quick, Andrew, let me ask you about that, because one of the things that they mentioned in there, talking about the rudders and steering, that there has to be a way to switch between two different steering systems quickly. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Explain that.
Different steering systems, and of course, there's steering motors that they have to have at least two operational. If they only have one, that's a problem. And to be able to switch in an emergency if you lose steering, that's a requirement as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So that would be
different systems.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to go into any of the details. They talk about non-follow-up and follow-up.
Yes, and that was the term that I saw in there, was that they had to be able to switch between the two of them quickly. Otherwise, you can't. And I guess this maybe goes back to what we saw in Baltimore a while back, where that ship suddenly, you know, obviously because it lost its power, but the point is it was unable to steer clear of that bridge, and it went ahead and hit the bridge there. And so this is one of the things they're after, is to be able to, if one system fails, to quickly activate another one and be able to maintain some kind of control of the ship, I guess.
Yeah, and these are things, all very good points and important points, and that I think hopefully, Willie, if we can in the future, reach out to some other pilot organizations, other maritime organizations.
Yes, I'd love to do that.
And
That's a great
make a
idea.
comparison to show you, you know, how much from day one that the people running the canal cared about its operation.
Yes, indeed.
You know, you just can't come here with you know, an anchor, a helm, and an outboard. You got to meet certain minimum requirements and standards. And if you think about it, you know, a lot of people, hey, but in other ports they don't require that. They don't require that in other ports, because if you think about it, in some countries have dozens of ports. If you lose one of those ports because something goes wrong, it shuts down that port.
Sure.
You can go to another port nearby.
Hey, look what happened in Suez a few years ago. That ship ran aground in Suez, and that impacted the entire world. This is one of the things about the Panama Canal. It is one of those waterways that is vital to the world, hence the importance of that neutrality treaty. It's something that is talked about so much. Why? Because everybody in the world needs the Panama Canal, and so therefore the flip side to that is that you have to have absolutely tip-top running condition ships. Everything has to be in order, and we're going to cover a couple of those other things here as well. Before you're even allowed to get into canal water, you have to slow down way before you're out there at certain times of the year, because it's whaling season, and they're requiring ships
July
to slow.
20th starts whaling season, and I was involved in that project. They called me up to the Smithsonian was involved. Some guys from SIDMAR, which is our training branch, and a couple other buddies of mine were involved in, where they determined that 10 knots is safe speed for whales to get out of the way. I don't know how they came up with that number, but 10 knots, and that's the restriction from the sea buoy to Punta Mala, I think it is. It's within...
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell us where those two are. Where's the sea buoy in relation to between Toboga Island and Naus on the causeway?
Well, when you clear the channel, it's 2 miles south of the channel, and it favors the east side.
Okay, so so the channel continues past the Causeway Islands, correct?
Well, buoys 1 and 2 are right there next to Flamenco, the south side of Flamenco.
Ah, so
Buoys
once you
1 and 2,
pretty much cross
right?
that island, you've now cleared the channel.
Yeah, as soon as you look left, you'll see the end of Flamenco.
Okay.
And the sea buoy is the center of a safe passage for entering and exiting the canal. All right, that
Gotcha.
you can't anchor there, you can't stop there, you can't do business there, you shouldn't be fishing there. It's a safe water area.
Right.
Okay?
Gotcha.
It has enough water for the deepest draft that serves the canal, which is about 50 feet, a little more. Yeah, 50 feet, 50 feet.
Right.
And
that's 50 feet from the top of the water down.
From the water line
down.
keel.
Wow. And then the tunnel is only like 65. How far down is the tunnel?
I believe it's about 65. No, I think it's 80 feet.
Is it 80 feet? Okay, so that's 30
like that.
feet in between. That's still not that
but it's
much.
rock. It's under bedrock. So remember, it's not mud and dirt. That it's there's a whole rock area supporting that water.
Yeah.
But so another interesting thing before we get ready to enter, because the ship is kind of on hold there. We put it on hold right by the yacht club. Maybe they're getting a beer there. And one other thing that I found interesting, as far as these requirements go, is that the rudder must travel from 30 degrees on one side to 35 on the other side in no more than 28 seconds.
That is correct. That is
interesting.
correct. That's
right?
a good point.
Because again, you're talking about massive ship here, guys. It's not going to turn on a dime.
About, moving that rudder in situations that in a situation where you need to act fast,
unexpected.
That's where they get that. You don't want to have a rudder lagging or slow. If it exceeds 28, that's another thing. Then another resource that the canal might impose on you. So backing it up a little bit, and I want to touch on this regulatory thing before the ship comes here. The inspectors, the port captain's office,
right.
All the people that get on board. It's intense, and maybe people complain, but it's all beneficial for everybody involved. For the other guy using the ship, to assure that that the ship that you're meeting is not going to veer off course by some mechanical or engine problem. And we guarantee, the safety of your vessel.
Right.
And that's obvious with the implication that the Panama Canal pilot has full navigation control.
Absolutely. Well, these ships aren't cheap, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some massive ships here. There's a lot of money on the line, a lot of cargo on the line.
Shipping companies may hem and haw and complain. Maybe, very few captains, complain that the Panama Canal pilot's taking the con. But, I can ask him, will you guarantee me that you take this ship through safely and that you know what you're doing and so on and so forth? Not that they don't know what they're doing, but there is a certain intimacy in the canal that the pilot has. And it's incredible how everybody is working in sync. One guy's going by, the other guy's turning around, he's following him, the other guy's coming this way,
right.
He's anchoring this way, this guy's going to the locks. It's
and keep this in mind, Panama is protecting their asset. You get a ship that wrecks, again, we just mentioned this earlier in the Suez Canal when they blocked the canal for several days. You do that in the Culebra Cut there, and you stop all shipping in the canal. That's a big loss of revenue for Panama. So, there's a lot of reasons why they do that. The other thing that they talk about in here, which is interesting, is when they talk about the fuel and the machinery, right? They, in essence, have to seal up that ship. And so nothing goes out of that ship either through any kind of dumping or bilge pumps or anything else while they're in canal waters. Because guess what, guys? That Gatun Lake is a bridge for the ships. It's also the drinking water for Panama. So they're very strict about what can come on and off that ship. And I mean, they make sure that you, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but you have to have that stuff padlocked. All those.
Well, I don't know if they padlock it, but there are records and books that the canal port engineer,
Okay.
which goes aboard and and checks all that stuff.
Sure.
And the type of fuel that they use in the canal is going green, so it's a lighter fuel, and it has a certain emission qualities
Okay.
that it has to meet. In the United States, they've extended that out to their 12-mile limit. So a lot of ships, to avoid from switching over from their heavier fuel, because a lot of ships burn heavy bunker C fuel, and bunker C is, you got to heat it up. It's very thick, and you get more bang for the buck with
Okay.
bunker C. It seals everything up in the engine, and so you get a lot of compression once you're out at sea. So when you're switching fuel, it's a pain, and it's a lighter fuel, more expensive fuel. They avoid that, and they now are going around U.S. waters, so that, because if you are in the Straits of Florida, for example, and you're within the 12 miles, you have to be running on
Wow. Okay.
approved fuel oil.
Sure. But hey, and I guess, in the Panama Canal, there's very few times that ship really powers up a lot, right? Because you're going very slow as you're transiting, so you're not really.
Oh, well, that's what most people think, but we're doing 14 knots on those big ships across the lake.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they
Look
get
at you.
up to speed.
Popping wheelies, huh?
Yeah, they get up to speed in 14
All right.
knots for a 1,200.
I guess it's pretty embarrassing when the Cayucos start passing you guys.
Yeah, right. They're blowing the horn. That's awesome.
That's
so
why
now
we got
here's
Steve.
another interesting piece here. When it comes to real quick, and guys, just to backtrack for a moment here. The way we're going to do this is we're going to talk in general about the entire transit, and then we're going to go into some specifics of approaching Miraflores locks. There's some areas in Balboa. There's a dock there called Dock Number 6 that has some specific restrictions just after you cross under the bridge. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that transit from, Miraflores through all the way through Pedro Miguel. And then we're going to talk about Culebra Cut. There's some big restrictions there as well, because that's a very narrow area. And one of the things you keep in mind is that the Panama Canal is 100% gravity fed, which means that there is always moving water in the canal, except when that chamber is closed. For a split second there's no water moving, but inside there, you're going to learn about some of that turbulence there and why the captain needs to know exactly how to handle that ship. And this is probably the biggest reason why they require the canal pilots to be on there, is because these guys may know how to run a ship, but they don't know what it's like when you get in these chambers, the way that water moves, because it doesn't move like it's supposed to move in a lot of these areas and stuff like that. So one of the things that we do here is when you have a large ship, you have them connected to these mules, right? But when you have smaller ships, and where's the demarcation there, Captain, as far as
65 feet,
Okay.
65. And some tugboats up to 100 and change, you can do sidewall handline. That's what it's called, a sidewall handline, if it's 65 feet or less. And but backing up a little bit to Culebra Cut, there's some pretty infamous situations. Two that come to mind for me is the Intrepid, which is a museum in New York.
Right.
Go to it, see it, be there, do it.
It's a carrier.
Lots of fun. She transited northbound one fateful day, and northbound, turning into Empire out of Culebra, and hit the bank. So how did that happen?
Well, we'll get to that when we get to Culebra. Let's keep it on our voyage here.
All right.
But I'll bring that up because that's important.
Liberty ship did hit the bank as well and sunk.
See, yeah, and we know, of course,
Sunk
about that
it.
one ship that sunk, and they had remember the one that had the rice and all
Rice
the
and
oil.
Oh, yeah. And it turned into booze or something.
Yes, and so they had
So
to.
it started fermenting.
Yes.
And the drinking water, because it was right there by the
Correct.
The intake.
Yes, where the intake was for the water supply for the canal zone in Panama. So all of a sudden, everybody's getting a free buzz, man, off of the boozy
No, but
ship.
these were
there, so.
situations of bacteria.
Yeah, certainly. It was going bad. It was rotting. But when we get to Culebra, we'll talk about it because it really is interesting. The Panama Canal, when you just view it, if you don't know what you're looking at there, everything looks nice and pristine and serene, nice and slow, a ship cruising by. But there's a lot going on underwater there that if you don't know what you're doing, man, you're gonna lose it. Yeah.
There's a lot of details in there, and
Yeah.
fun to to bring light to like on certain places like Cora. Is anybody familiar with Cora?
No, what's that?
It's like engineering or a place where you inquire about something.
Okay.
And a lot of times the Panama Canal comes up and they say, yeah, those mules, they don't do anything, to help the ship through. They just keep them off the wall, and then I'm one of the Panama Canal experts. So I tell them, oh, no, au contraire. Those mules, 35 tons, I guarantee you they help pull the ships through.
Of course. Makes sense.
Yeah. And a lot of little details that people don't understand about the operation. And that's what we're going to bring to light today. There's
Absolutely.
so many moving parts. And,
Well, just like you mentioned here with these boats tethered here, and you're talking about that human hand line, which correct is 4 people literally walking with ropes in their hand, right? Guiding ropes.
that.
Sometimes they walk along the wall, but those are the line handlers on the wall, and there's several configurations. The one that you see there is center chamber, nested, but there's options for sidewall, only on the sidewall, nested, sidewall to floating equipment, sidewall to a tugboat.
And who
center
makes that
chamber.
call?
Yeah.
Who
I'm
makes
sorry?
the call on what?
The owner puts it down. Yeah, I want to go only center chamber,
Okay.
and big expensive yachts. It makes sense, or they
Yeah, you
have
know what? That's scraped up along the sides.
or they have some
line
rigging.
handlers. We always thought was the guys in the little rowboats that would go out there and grab the
No,
rope.
but I'll tell you what. Speaking of those guys in the rowboats, 2 things. One is monkey fist. We're going to talk about a monkey fist, and the other one is on the video there. You're going to see it at one point, and in certain instances here, we'll go to full screen so you can see it. But you can actually see the guys. Although it is a little bit sped up, but you can see the little boat go out in front, and then just as it's getting ready to approach the chamber and enter, you'll see them. Kind of. Row away from off to the side there, and yeah, they're doing that gig like they've done for 100 years, man.
Yeah,
Is row out there and grab a
1914.
rope.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really interesting here. So a couple of things that we keep in mind, Andrew, and you can explain these better. There's a difference in positioning of the ships when it comes to ascending or climbing the locks, going up into the lake versus going down, correct? There's an order they put small versus big ships?
Are you referring to the hand lines? Now, what you're probably talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, is where do the hand lines go if they're locked with a bigger ship?
Yes, correct.
And the reason behind that is safety, because remember, we're working with gravity. So if there's a fire or an incident, you always have to put hand line downstream. So what does that mean? Locking up, they go behind the ship. Locking down, they go ahead of it. That way, they always have a source of exit for the smaller vessel. So the chamber starts ablaze and the ship's on fire. We can't get those people out of there. Lower it down, open the gates, and let that hand line out. The other direction, ship's ablaze, there's an incident, an accident, lower it down, open the gates, and back on out. You see what I'm saying?
Sure. So they have easy escape.
The
Right,
number one
exactly.
land handler. Yeah, that's
the
good,
whole
man.
thing behind it.
Interesting.
And that's what I want to reiterate and tell you guys about the fantastic regulatory system that the canal has, the fine men and women that inspect the ships. And I'll tell you, I've been through the Suez Canal twice, and some good professionals over there, I'm sure, but it isn't the Panama Canal. Okay.
Right.
It's not.
And hence you had that big accident back then because it's these little things, but it's like an airliner accident. It's a cascading effect of numerous things that fail. You know, and that's why the canal has so many pieces in place. You're talking 96 hours before arrival. You have to check in, and there's certain things that have to be signed off and stuff. And let me go into that real quick here, because we talked about this earlier in the week in one of the promo videos. Was something, and I'm going to go over it here real quick, and then we'll backtrack to it in a moment here. But what is VUMBUS?
Yeah, so that's the electronic. That's where the ship agent. The ship agent runs the whole thing. They're familiar with that, and I've never used it before. I don't have to, of course, but that's where they provide all the information for the canal, and it's the what does it stand for?
Ventanilla Única Marítima, something de Panama, whatever, and which is or pilotos or something like that. But it's the only place that you're allowed to check in, the official system to check in with the ACP to basically get logged in and in line to use the canal. In other words, to book your reservation, I guess.
Right, and there's a lot of things that they have to fill out. You
Correct.
know, anybody sick or dead on board. The
cargo manifest or things of that nature.
And that's where add measurement. Does the vessel need to be add measured? Yes or no? And that's where the term Y job comes from, because you check Y. Yes, it needs to be add measured. So Y job, or yes, needs to be add measured. It cascaded down to first time transit. That's what a Y job is.
Okay. And what does add measure mean?
Add measure, back in the old day, they'd go there and measure the volume of the vessel. You know, from what I understand, they were in there with a tape measure.
Wow.
You know, checking all the spaces, you know, spaces that carry cargo, spaces that carry fuel, spaces that carry, you know, and that way the tolls could correctly be applied.
God, that's got to be a couple-day job.
Klaus, didn't Klaus do that? I mean, one Klaus is a pilot, but his like the other Klaus, didn't he do that?
Yeah, Jaime is in there, but they don't do that anymore. Now you have to send the plans in.
Right.
You know, we have a naval architect, and they go through all that.
Well, that's what, you know, Panama Canal is the king, right? It's good to be the king. You're going to say, listen, you want to use our canal, you got to do it this way. Well, we don't have that. Well, when you get it, call us back. You know, and get in the back of the line now. Next.
Or pay $4 million to get through.
So that tells you what kind of a backlog they have. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue our approach then. We're arriving, getting ready to cross under the bridge there. Couple interesting facts there. 198-foot clearance from high water to the bottom of that bridge, right? The area that you cross under. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so what we permit, anything that is over, you know, we put a 15-foot margin is
okay.
a
little buffer.
Is our safety margin. 15 feet. Nothing is going to pass closer than 15 feet. Maybe if it has it on a one-time basis, maybe it's 14. I can't, maybe years ago. But right now, that's the cutoff, 15 feet.
Gotcha.
For safety. And so ships that are up to 205, you know, if you're what's 15 minus the high water mark?
The 220 is the high water.
Is that? No.
Well, the high water mark says 198 on this thing.
Yeah, 198. So what's 15 minus that?
170, 173 or something.
And I know it in meters. So if you're like at 58.5 meters or less, then you can go through any time.
Okay.
Anything for
57.9 meters.
What is it?
57.9 meters. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So 58. And as soon as you get to 59 meters, now you got by case. And you have to get a window. You know, all right, when's the tide lower?
Okay.
So that's based on a window when the tide.
Sure. Well, that's probably helpful then in the Pacific side where you have those massive tides where that really does make a big difference.
Sure.
20 feet, I believe, right?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
All the bridges are at least 75 meters, so
okay.
There's no problem from there. And,
all right.
And the west side is 1 foot higher than the east side. Just a small, you know, not that it makes a difference, but
right.
Just so you know, of the bridge I'm talking about.
Yeah, certainly. So now, once you cross under the bridge, you're in the area that is called the Balboa Reach. Is that correct?
Right, and we're passing Dock 6.
Yeah.
Where, the pier numeration, very interesting, and we'll talk about the piers a little bit. The Pacific Sailfish Club was Pier 1 originally. Where was the Pacific Sailfish Club? That was the old Balboa Yacht Club, and that was Pier 1. They had the fuel crib. That was Pier 2. Somewhere else there was Pier 3. 4. Pier 4 was the original French pier during canal construction. 5 and 4 and 5 were taken out, I think, at the end of the 90s.
Okay.
It was that extension of Pier 6 heading south. Those piers disappeared at the end of the 90s.
Those are the La Boca piers, right?
Yeah, I don't know what you called them, but I didn't even remember them, to tell you the truth. But
Yeah, they're right. When you came back in the back row, right when you went around that bend, there used to be some piers there back in the day.
Right.
Well,
So-
just north of the bridge, right? All right, so Pier 6 runs Balboa Reach, and then 4 and 5, or 4, maybe I think they skipped 5, ran the Pacific Reach.
Right. So so let me go ahead and pull that up here real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and go to full screen if I can, so you can really see, why this Dock 6 is so important here, and and so before I do that though, give us the importance of Dock 6 and what the restrictions are when it comes to.
There are, you can't put a vessel of 105-foot beam there, case by case. Obviously it'll be sticking in the channel. So I think the maximum beam there is, and I was in the office, I can't even remember. I think it was 100 feet.
Okay. And a beam, guys, is the width of the ship from one side to the other, not the length. Right. The width of it, how fat it is, in essence. I'm using a Zonian term there, fat.
Now, I see that a lot of tuna boats tie up there, but the dry bulk carrier does go there, and they bring animal feed and grains, and that's discharged by the ship's cranes, into the hopper, and trucks line up, and that's what you do at 6. At 7, around the corner, that's their dedicated ro-ro berth. So a lot of car carriers go in there. They put their ramp down, bow in, heading east with the stern ramp at the corner of 6 and 7, and there discharge your latest Toyotas, Nissans, or Chinese
EVs. That's right. Well, let's take a look at it in full screen here so you can see how far that sticks out and why it's important to not have a big fat vessel sticking out there, because it could be, could be dangerous here. But here's where that approach again. We're coming up. There's the yacht club, everybody. And then we're pulling up onto the bridge here, and you can see to the front there on the right side, just past the bridge, there's that whole dock and that pier area sticking out. And that is Dock 6, correct?
Yeah, keep her coming.
Yeah, La Boca dock, yeah.
Keep going. All right, now we're under the bridge, and there's Dock 6 right off to your right.
There you go.
Oh, that was the La Boca. That was the La Boca.
So now I'll go ahead and
there.
pause it there. And so if you look for a moment, think about a big fat ship sticking out there.
Yeah.
Especially in poor weather where the visibility is lower.
So what kind of ships dock there again, Andrew? The fertilizers?
Mostly grain, tuna boats, getting fuel and their nets on and off for repair, but mostly grain, dry bulk.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that.
Bridge basin restriction here. In this little turn, they have a lot of restrictions for meeting ships of certain sizes. This
Balboa and Diablo. Oh my
one way.
God.
Interesting. That's absolutely fascinating.
Amazing, man.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible how they've, you talk about how things have grown and stuff, but really what they've done with Balboa, for us that grew up there, in some ways you look at it and go, it's kind of sad, the ball fields are gone and this, that, and the other, but from a standpoint of progress for the country, it's just incredible what they've done there.
Yeah. It's the third largest.
Yeah.
The one in Atlantic being the largest.
What is amazing is the Port of Balboa and its development. Originally, going back to the numbering of the piers, we got 6, 7, and then all those dry docks in there. And then you got places where the tugboats tie up and then pop off to 14, 15, 16, 17. Then you turn the corner. 17, 16, 17, and 18 are the three piers that run north-south. But was it like that all the ways? No. If you all recall, there was Pier 18.
Right.
And that was
the main one.
Yeah, it was the main one. But originally, it was the second design because it was supposed to be 18, 19, 20, and 21. There were supposed to be three more finger piers. In this research that I've been telling you, I saw that. And also, I saw a design. The first original design of the Port of Balboa was like New York Harbor, where it had 6 piers on one side, and it went all the way in to where the administration building was, and then 6 more on the other side.
Wow, that's incredible.
But that never pulled through, nor did the finger piers of 19, 21.
Yeah, certainly.
But
I've been around where the spinning club is.
Well, there was a lot of, listen, one of the things that I've learned from the excavating research I've been doing is that the Pacific side especially, and I don't know if this had to do with the tidal situation or not, but there wasn't as much firm bedrock and stuff. And again, we're going to talk later on as to why Gatun is all one set of locks, and on the Pacific side, it's under 2 sets of locks. But you take, for example, the causeway, and the amount of spoil that they put in there, they ended up having to put in 10 times the amount that they originally had planned for because it kept sinking and it wouldn't stop sinking. And so I imagine that may have been part of what went on here where you're talking about 18, 19, 20, and all of a sudden they realized, wait, we can't do that. A lot of this infrastructure, the ground won't hold it in this area because remember, that was all reclaimed land.
It was a pain in the butt to drive those pilings, and I have the diagrams of the pilings and the proposed piers and everything, and you can see the swamp. The swamp Albrook came all the way up to the foot of Sosa Hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the way up to all that's filled in. And I was telling Ricky the other day as they were excavating to put some footing for the bridge, all that, it looked like the causeway.
Right. Yes.
They brought from the excavation, they dumped it all there, all the way up to Balboa.
I gotta believe that if you were somewhere up in that Corey Heights area or up on Sosa Hill and you could access it on a regular basis back then, it must have been fascinating to see what Balboa and that whole area looked like and what it turned into because it's night and day.
All little stumpy trees.
Yeah. Water everywhere.
All water.
Yeah, incredible. Absolutely incredible the amount of fill that did, which shows you how much was taken out of Culebra to build this canal that you had enough to create this entire town, and you had enough to create this massive 1 mile wide, Gatun Dam as well. And it just, it's phenomenal the amount of dirt that was dug up there. But anyway, that's for another show here. Back to this area. So we're getting past these ports now, and we're now really into the Panama Canal. We're moving there. One of the interesting things here is this 8-knot minimum mandate, right? Is that something that you guys deal with a lot?
Well, they just the transit will tell you, that there's a slow bell by Dock 6. So 8 might be a little fast. You got to watch the draft of your ship, how deep it is in the water, because as you move by, as many ships go through the lake, I'm sure as you remember swimming at Governor's Island or whatever, all of a sudden the water sucked out.
Right.
You knew that behind that island a ship was going by.
Yes.
So those are things you got to consider. And one of the safeguards that we like to do in the canal on ships tied up along the canal access is put an anchor down. And I've noticed that reduces surging by 10 to 15%. At Dock 6, a lot of people don't do it. I like to do it. Put that anchor down, and it's an extra footing for the vessel. Now, the Neos that tie up at Kokoli tie-up station, north and south, everybody puts the anchor down.
Okay.
And that's just extra bit of prevented from surging, because as you surge, you can break lines as the ships are at mooring. And that's happened a couple times. And I was in the office where one of the first remote piloting operations goes on. They called me and said, "Hey, the ship went by. 2 lines are broken on this ship out at Coakley Moorings North." And so I said, "All right, call the harbor pilot, head him out there, and get me a tug on site right away." I get the CCT camera, I look at it, I get on the transit channel, I see the tug approaching, and I tell him, "All right, make fast," on the radio. And I'm sitting in my office, because we had to act quickly. The
Sure.
ship coming off the mooring, and I gave commands to the tug, come head easy, from my office watching the TV. All
That's
right,
amazing.
until the launch handler came out, the pilot came out, we contacted the master and, get the bow thruster online. But anyways, long story short, you put that anchor down just on the bottom, and it's a little extra holding power besides
Sure. Sure.
the
Well,
point.
later on in our transit, we're going to learn about a place where you do not put anchors down. And you're going to find out why here in just a little bit, because it's interesting that there are places like what Andrew's saying here that it absolutely benefits you to put that anchor down. But there's a place that you absolutely do not put that anchor down, is my understanding. And so we'll find out how well my research was on it. But again, continuing on here, we were talking about this knowledge of the canal and why it's so important on these large ships to have a Panama Canal pilot on there, somebody that is very familiar with the waters here. And here's one of the big reasons why. Again, I didn't know this up until I did my research here, but salt water and fresh water don't mix. They don't like to mix. And there's one is a lot more dense than the other. Their buoyancy changes on a ship, but also as these two waters collide, they create these currents underwater there, right? Because remember, the canal is powered by water coming in from Gatun. It is all fresh water, okay? And it is being pushed out through these locks. And so at some point, as you're coming up Miraflores, that whole channel to approach there is water that's been fed down. And of course, you have your ocean water coming in. But how is that really noticeable, Andrew, that when you hit a salt water to a fresh water, do you really feel a change in that current?
So what they're talking about there is the density current, and for me, the biggest thing is not the speed of the current, but the direction. Okay, because if you're stemming current, you can stem it all day, and actually, it can benefit you. You got to use it to your advantage. Density currents happen. That's one thing you need to be aware of. Also, when you're approaching Miraflores, for example, and it's very prominent in Miraflores, not so much in Cocoli, the new locks, because they've made some improvements. They've learned from design flaws. There is a design flaw at Miraflores. The Miraflores, and I'll let you guys in on a big secret here. That wall, that center wall in Miraflores was back then, for whatever reason, is not the same wall as in Gatun approach. And I'm talking about the south wall on Miraflores approach northbound. That wall is an approach wall, and it's about 1,000 feet long. But the big design flaw on that is it is a solid wall. There is nowhere for the water to go. So it gets between you and the ship. Beware, because water is not compressible.
Right, I was going to say water does not compress.
So what's going to happen? You want to get on there. There's been times you're pushing full. You have the locomotives coiling in, braking, and you cannot get that ship to the wall. Okay, an invisible wall, like at Cocoli, no problem getting there because the water passes through the support system or the pilings.
Oh, okay.
Through it.
So it's almost like a big dock.
What's that?
I said an invisible wall is really almost like a big dock in essence because the water passes underneath it.
So when I say invisible, it means there's no solid bulkhead that goes from the water line down. Okay. It's just pilings. And the same thing in Gatun, people don't realize it, but water can go through that center wall. Not as much as an invisible wall, but it does filter through, and there's piles at the Gatun approach. so you don't experience that problem as much as you do in Miraflores. I've been on some ships, and just pulling and braking and pushing, and that ship will not go to the wall. You're maybe 2, 3, 4 feet off, but remember, 105 in beam, 4 feet off, you're touching the knuckle.
Right.
So,
Yeah. That's
you don't want to
interesting.
speed until you're flat on that wall in Miraflores, northbound.
Yeah. And what they're referring to here on this, when we're talking about this, is that, as the lock chamber opens, it releases a bunch of this water that starts flowing through. And so all of it as a solid body of water is hitting this other salt body of water. And that's where, again, they don't mix and they create those currents that'll push you from one side to the other. And that's what Andrew's talking about there. So continuing on then, couple different things here when it comes to, again, this knowledge of that canal and how the water works, because it reacts differently in different areas of the canal, right? The first one here, we talk about that Balboa Reach, which we learn is that area coming in under the bridge, the first area by the porch and stuff, okay? You have a lot of the tidal salt water, right? You certainly have plenty of salt water there. You're right off of the ocean there. And so the other difference between saltwater and freshwater is the density of the water. And so therefore your ship rides a little bit higher in saltwater than it does in freshwater. Correct, Andrew? Is that the density?
Yeah,
Okay.
you get that's why, you got to take the density of the water at the port that you load in. And if you're going to transit the Panama Canal, you got to realize that we are a tropical fish density, which is a formula for that 0.999999 is freshwater of the Panama Canal. And maybe up in the Mississippi, you might be, saltwater is 1025, salty saltwater 1025.
Okay.
And freshwater is 999999. And so somewhere in between there, you got to calculate how much cargo you're taking, because you will sink in the Panama Canal once you get up
Right.
to the, and they will read your draft. And if you're overdraft, then it's a whole nother world you don't
That's
want.
another problem you have, right? And so you have to know these things, because your ship is going to float at different areas based on that density, which is, it's common knowledge, but maybe again, a pilot that's not working on the canal every day doesn't recognize that, hey, 5 miles from here, you're going to have a way different density of water, and it's going to be a whole different draft for you.
Andrew, has there ever been a time where another pilot other than a Canal Zone pilot took a ship through?
What do you mean?
Has there ever been a reason for a non-canal pilot to take a ship through?
I've never heard of such a thing. I wonder if anything went on during World War II or before, or any stories. I'll try and file through my memory of any story like that, but I can't think of any situation like that.
I mean, didn't you bring in the Zumwalt through?
Yeah, I was on the Zumwalt, sure.
Which is a very modern, very new technology, and yet you still had a canal pilot on there.
And that's the one that got the flat tire, right?
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
James, I'll never forget James Kirk.
But no, that's an interesting question, because the Panama Canal is the Panama Canal, and that shows you the stature that it has.
Power.
If you don't like the rules, spend another 60 days going around South America, man. Give me a call when you get back.
It goes back to, again, keeping the ships moving, keeping the safety at a bar level that is unprecedented, and the experiences of the Panama Canal pilot are bar none. I mean,
right.
They are in there every day, and some ports, maybe you spend an hour on the ship, maybe you spend 30 minutes, depending on the distance from the sea buoy to the berth. But in the Panama Canal, you are saturated in ship handling conditions, backing, anchoring, meeting other ships, low visibility, fog, rain, turning in tight circles, anchor work.
And all of those may all happen in one transit anyway. I mean, that's the thing about it. There's just so much going on there. It really is. It's not being braggadocious here. It's the truth. The Panama Canal pilots are second to none. They're just absolutely fantastic pilots, and it's a challenge here. As we're going to
World renowned.
continue
I mean,
this
everybody
transit.
knows canal pilots.
You're gonna learn what all that goes on there.
Well,
So now
with the expansion, we've stepped up to the big boy games, because now we have ships up to 50 feet in draft,
right,
167 feet in beam, and I can recall, in San Francisco, a pilot telling me, yeah, the Panama Canal, you guys are playing with Tinker toys. Well, that was true, back in the 90s and early 2000s. But as the coming of the big ships and containers and, snooze, you lose, the correct decision was to expand.
Sure.
And now back in the big boy game, with big ships.
Absolutely.
And from bulk carriers to container ships, passenger ships. And but one thing the canal does exceed in now, while other ports were taking bigger ships, most of the U.S. ports do not get to 50 feet.
Correct.
Most of them are less than 50 feet. Most of them. There are some that exceed, in some ports, but in Alaska, of course, with the oil traffic. But for the most part, the average deep water port in the United States is about 42 feet.
Interesting.
So we have lots of experience with heavy ships, their reaction, how to handle them.
Sure. Well, that's another thing. You talk about how to handle them in reaction. The other section here with this hydrodynamic, which basically is a term for the way water moves, is, as you're approaching Miraflores, is that saltwater freshwater exchange, and that's where again you get those different shear forces and the density currents that are happening there. But then the last one is that lock chamber one, and that one, to put it into perspective, you're talking about in 10 minutes. 55 million gallons of water moving through there. That's a tremendous current that's going on there. And,
ship.
Yeah, so exactly.
Well, let's break that down into two sections that you just mentioned. The spilling and the density current. Again, for me, current isn't about the strength, but the direction. All right?
Okay.
If you know the direction, and that's why we stem the current going into Miraflores, either east or west, you put that bow in there, you're golden. When you come alongside the wall and that spill comes, that's where you need to be careful, because it's going to push you off the wall. It will push you off. And so those are the two key components, which are completely opposite of the lake entrance into Miraflores, which is on the north side.
Sure, on the freshwater side.
Both sides are lake entrances.
Yeah.
Because now you're in 100% fresh water in that maneuver. And
yeah,
so
water doesn't flow uphill.
Water to freshwater maneuver.
Nile.
Completely distinct.
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean, the salt water does not go up into Miraflores locks. It only goes the other direction. So anything past the Miraflores locks on a northbound transit is strictly 100% fresh water, and that's what you're dealing with. So now you've, like we just learned, your draft is different. You're going to be lower in the water now. You're going to be dealing with different kinds of currents, and then once you get into these chambers, then you have some really massive currents there that you have to deal with, because again, you're talking tremendous amounts of water that are moving in a very short period of time. The other thing we're going to go through real quick here before we get into the locks there is this mustering the watch. And again, we're talking about larger ships here. How much of this is something your guys are doing and really is enforced here as far as posting people and watching certain systems and locations on a ship?
Are you talking about the knuckle duster?
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, I'm not familiar with those terms, but there's you have, it looks like you have there's a bridge and a master and a pilot, right? The pilot and the master being the person in charge of the ship when it's out at sea and whatnot. In the engine room, there's a full engineer watch. Is that something that you still do?
Yeah, they have the engineers are supposed to be on watch during the transit. There's certain requirements. I forgot what they are. But again, when I was referring to the knuckle duster, that's where added resources are to the vessel. For example, one of the requirements is that on a super, which is 90 feet or more in beam, and back in the day, a super would have 4 pilots on it. That's right, 4 pilots.
Wow.
2 on the bow for bow control.
Yeah.
2 on the bridge. And so some of the requirements are like at night, we have HML designations, which is high mast lighting. Can the ship meet certain requirements to lock through at night, going through the cut at night, meeting other ships?
Yeah.
And some of the specifications that are required of the ship's equipment is that it be illuminated. The rudder angle indicator is your number one friend. You need to be able to see what your order is being executed correctly or not. Let's say that light on the rudder angle indicator is out. That could be a problem. Let's say the ship was designed without a rudder angle indicator out on the bridge wing, because that's where you need it most, because you're out there giving commands, dead slow ahead, hard to port, and who's going to verify that? Yes, the master's on there, the helmsman, and the chief mate, or one of the mates. Very good. But who will verify that?
Sure.
You know, in other ports, I've talked to my buddy pilots, and they said, you know, they had shouting matches. Hey, make sure the mate is watching that my command is executed properly, because he looks over there and the rudder went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Communication, confusion, whatever. So in our situation, we assign an additional pilot whose sole job is to watch the rudder angle indicator and the engine order telegraph, and to make sure that the pilot's commands are executed.
Right.
And that's where you come into an assistant pilot, instrument pilot, or knuckle duster, as they're referred to.
Very interesting. Okay. So it's not as simple as everybody thinks, and you got to have a lot of eyes on it to make sure it happens. Not a lot of room for error, guys. Okay.
No,
I mean, you get that Culebra. Yeah.
On my Instagram, Captain's Playground, 2 nights ago, Vietnam ship, all Vietnam crew, I was coming into Miraflores on the west side northbound. You can see where the bow all of a sudden goes to the right or starboard. You know, I gave the rudder hard to port, and the guy went hard to starboard. You know, and I caught it. You know, but between catching it, because I'm looking at the rudder angle indicator and make sure it's lit, and he went the wrong way. Your first thing is, no, hard to port, hard. No, that's not what you say. You say midship, because that is something that is undeniably clear. Midship is like the back to zero, you know.
Okay. That's a nautical term standard across the world.
Well, most pilots know that when the wrong command is given, you don't, you don't start cursing or whatever. Stop it by giving midship. Then when he's on his way back to midship, you can have your conversation with the captain. Hey, new helmsman or whatever, when he's on his way back to midship, then you can say hard to port.
Right. Because again, guys, we're not talking about something that you turn a wheel and instantly turns. Okay, it's going to take. There's a delay there, and so it gives you that time to act. But again, midship is that stop whatever you're doing basically, and then we'll start correcting it. In essence,
right? Exactly.
Okay,
it's
perfect.
Back to neutral position, better than the wrong position. And I had the tugs, working and plus. There's a postage stamp size rudder on that ship, so it had already a problem. Very small rudder, and so it was directionally unstable to begin with.
Interesting.
Postage size.
So now we've approached the locks here. We're getting ready to enter the Miraflores locks here, okay? And I'm going to go to full screen because I want you guys to pay attention at the front here. And Ricky, we were talking about those rowboats that they still take out to get that first line. You'll actually see it here, and then afterwards, as we get into the chamber, you'll see the other boat or the same one, I guess, release and go around the other side of the dock.
Also, look at the angle of the ship approaching the wall, and that's where you're going to get to stemming the current. Roll it.
Let's do it. Yeah. And you see he's actually going a little bit to the left.
Yeah. Looks like it's pointing to the left.
Yeah.
Because the currents will push them
Now
towards the wall.
watch out to the front of you. You'll barely see it now. You're going to see a little rowboat pop out there just a moment.
On the right or left? He would
On
be on the left.
He went on the left, and now you're going to see him go on the right here and disappear and come out to the right there.
Yeah, there he is stemming.
Oh, there he is. Wow, man, what a job.
You just look at there he is. He's
I
rowing
wonder
back
if those
to the
guys
side.
are the studs.
All right, and look, and there's your tugboat on the other side. He's getting him in there, working him in carefully.
Pushing him in towards the wall.
Now, the timeline on here said that they crossed the bridge at 6:51, and it's 7 o'clock as they're getting into these locks here. So it was about 10 minutes. Is that about right on average?
Wow, it's amazing how much it moves. Or is that my eyes? Looks like it's going left, right.
Well, it's being adjusted, and keep in mind, this is
now
set up,
it's
too.
straight. Yeah.
He's not getting it on the wall. You see how it wants to come off the. Yeah.
So right now it wants to pull towards the left or the right.
To the left.
Yeah.
Wants to
Okay.
pull
I
to the
get.
left,
it,
and that's
I
why look,
get
you
it.
even have a tug there, ensuring
Yeah.
that it stays to that side.
Yeah.
And the second tug is on the quarter.
Okay.
On the back.
Amazing.
All right. So he just pushes you right in. All right. Got to get out of there.
Look at how he spun around.
Because the swing bridge is there.
And look at the water being.
Yeah, this was a while back because the swing bridge is no longer there. It's now gone.
Yeah.
But that's
Put
true.
that swing.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And so now we're getting into that first chamber, and this is where, again, prior to this door opening here, there's still salt water in the water there, right? And so your draft is a little bit different. But once these open up, it's a whole different ballgame there.
So Andrew, that mile between Paraíso and Miraflores, is that like a to desalt?
No, I mean, I can't. I'm not familiar how or why the reasons between the two separate.
Well, I'll tell you right now, because we were going to save it toward the end, but we'll go ahead and tell you right now. It's a very simple reason. The canal, you think of the locks as concrete bathtubs, okay? These things, when the doors are closed, they hold tremendous amounts of water, plus these gigantic ships and all the other concrete, everything on top of that. So you have this whole gigantic concrete bathtub. You can't sit it on dirt. It actually had to sit on the bedrock. That's why they had to dig way down in the canal construction. They had to dig down to the actual rock itself. Okay? On the Pacific side, the bedrock was very much displaced. It wasn't solid all the way across. And so what they figured was you couldn't have that big of a concrete bathtub sitting on that one bedrock. It was too heavy. And so therefore they decided to break it up and put two of it on Miraflores and the other one in Pedro Miguel because there's a soft gap in between those two that wouldn't support it all. On Gatун's side, you had a solid bedrock all the way across. It easily supported the entire weight of that concrete bathtub, which is your locks.
But my question,
where's that clapping?
Yeah, right?
how Oculi is all in one shot,
Yeah, it's interesting how they work that out. Maybe it's a different technology they use. Maybe they had to pour in something to support it, or who knows? But that was the original reason why they did that was they didn't think that the bedrock would support a 3-chamber locks on the Pacific side like it did on the Atlantic side. And that's from the canal plans, the original canal plans that they figured that out, which again kind of coincides with what we learned about, like you just mentioned, the causeway and all that area there. It just kept sinking. It was a lot lower down the bedrock than what we thought it was versus the Atlantic side. So
And the interesting thing was in the late 30s, when they were building the third lane, and in my research, it was called New Miraflores and New Pedro Miguel.
Right.
It also, to the west, there were two separate plans for them, and the Borinque Dam or road. There was a road called Borinque. Borinque is an old name that's been around there, but Juan Thompson wants to know if I can get a piece of the old swing bridge, and that is long gone. So.
They took that with the other steel for the bridge they were supposed to replace. They probably took that shit and sold it too. That's the way that worked, I'm sure. But okay, so we're in the locks. You're right. We're in Miraflores, and the graphic here now says there's a sequence of departure. And maybe you can kind of explain this and see again if this is something that's still in practice. A lot of this stuff, guys, remember, was from way back or earlier processes in the canal that maybe they've changed them. But it says vessels engines engaged to hold the station against the heavy wash. So I guess before those locks doors open, which is going to now create a big current, you I guess rev up the engines. Is that correct?
I'm not catching I'm looking at the graphic here. All right, let's start at number 1. Vessel engines engaged to hold station against heavy wash. What does that mean?
That's what I'm curious. I guess when you open it up and maybe as a ship goes through it, the props start creating a current that starts circulating around the back of the chamber, because obviously it can't go through the lock gates on the gate behind it, right?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't understand what that says. Locomotives detach steel cables.
As they're leaving the chambers, I guess as they finish clearing the Miraflores locks.
Yeah, let me tell you about a heavy draft ship in Miraflores northbound. It is quite a very shallow, number 1, and so you pick up speed as you're coming out, and right when you get to the jaws or the entrance, the thing comes to a grinding stop. And because the clearance, the underkeel clearance, there's nowhere for the water to go. It can't compress, and I'm telling you, you have all the locomotives towing, and you have the engine just about on full ahead, just to get over that one sill. That sill just compressed. So the dynamics, and that brings us back to the original design of the locks, was at 37, 38 feet. 37 feet. 37 feet all day long, in and out, up and down. There is no issues 99% of the time. Once you get below to 38, 39 feet of draft, forget about it. You have the rotational effect of the propeller. So
Right.
you got to keep the quarter off from touching the walls. You got to keep those locomotives towing.
Tension.
And it is a drag, literally, to get the ship through at 39 feet. It's slow and cumbersome.
So now
There's
you mentioned that they come to that halt almost at the end there. So in essence, is it because on the end of that, it's almost like a ramp effect where all the water suddenly starts to come to a smaller area? Yeah.
Shallow, it's built up. There could be silt. There could be all kinds of situations. The Miraflores Lake is controlled, and they keep it about 55 feet, 54.
Okay.
Press it up with more water if it's a heavy draft ship.
Well, that makes sense. That lake, you can always control the depth of it regardless of the weather, because that one's controlled by what you're dumping from the Pedro Miguel locks.
Correct. So this part here, as he starts coming out, is always a choke point, literally, for the ship. You may be cruising along. Hey, I'm going great.
Right.
Knots. And all of a sudden, it's like just hitting a brick wall.
Wow. Now, do you feel that? Like, is there like a shuddering or vibrating as the water starts rushing more and more?
No, you just feel like like you're just
it's not moving.
Hit a wall, and so you start
that's great.
Putting power on.
Right.
And there's different techniques. So this is where, take a look here, right about there is where you start slowing down. This guy's got a light draft. I can tell you, he's filled with windmills.
Yeah, right.
They don't have any kind of draft on that.
Sure.
They're
And keep in
carrying-
mind that this video, it's 40 minutes, and a typical transit takes 8 to 10 hours. So you're moving a lot faster than you normally are anyway. So
but this kind of vessel, literally, the cargo is air. Windmills. That doesn't weigh. It takes up a lot of space, but not volume.
So on this graphic here, it talks about again that geographic anomaly, which it's uniquely fractured, that area, the bedrock, and so that's why they didn't think they were going to be able to support it. It would eventually sink. completely unrelated, but one of those big airports that they built, I think it's either in Hong Kong or in Japan. One of them that they built out on the water, it's sinking now.
Yeah,
Japan. And so that is a real thing, right? And it's a similar situation here. It was, that entire lock system, that chamber is massive. There's a lot of weight there, and you're pumping a bunch of water in there. And on top of that, you have some gigantic ships in there. So all of that weight is sitting on that bedrock, and that's why in this case they said, hey, we're gonna have to build it and split it into two different pieces here. So again, just a quick graphic here of the depth and the sea level and what you're doing. It's obviously much more compressed, but you really are climbing, like Ricky said, an 8-story plus building is the height difference from the sea level to the lake there, and that's a lot of.
Yeah, in essence, yes and no. And I was just thinking about this, in my research because back in the day, original construction plus 40 was the top. Was the bottom of the canal. So you add 40 feet of water, that's where you get that number 85,
Okay.
And actually the bottom of the ship doesn't go up 85 feet.
No, correct. But the top does. So in other words, the surface where you're at, if you're on a ship and you're 10 feet above the water line, you're going to go up and you're still going up 85 feet though, correct?
Right.
Okay.
But not the bottom of the ship. The bottom
not the bottom, yes.
40
correct.
feet below.
Yeah.
We got Juan Thompson asking, what safety clearances for Centenario Bridge and the bridge in Cologne? There isn't, because those are, like I said, over 75 meters. So
there's nothing that high that goes through there anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No ships have 75 meters air draft.
Right. Well, and it's perfect timing to talk about that, because there it is. The Centenario Bridge is approaching there, which means that we're in the Culebra Cut, right? And this is that Gaylord Cut. This is a very treacherous area.
Right where the ship is at, right there, was a scene of a lot of action. If you can pause it there for a second.
It is.
It was a scene of lots of discussion, design, and I'm trying to figure out why that area north of Paraiso was so popular for 3 bridge designs and a tunnel. That's right. 3 bridge designs and a tunnel in that area. First of all, the 57.5 trestle, because as we all know, the Panama Railroad ran on the west coast, on the west bank. It came down the west side and crossed the canal construction at 57.5. Now, 57.5 is in kilometers, and why are kilometers? That was the reference point because it was a transitional period when the French used kilometers.
Right.
Americans adopted it, and that's where the bridge was. It was actually 57.75, but 57.5 was easier to say, I think. And that was the name of the trestle, 57.5. And 0 being at the north end. And so there, in 1909, the great architectural division of the ICC had an articulating bridge, a swing bridge, a floating bridge, and a tunnel for the train, all in those areas. 1,900-foot tunnel, and they were all there. Eventually, the design that won was a swing bridge, and that was implemented at Miraflores. And they did have a pontoon bridge later, after 57.5, and the water was placed into the cut. And before they completely displaced the Panama Railroad to the east side, there was a bridge, a pontoon bridge for the railroad.
Right. Yes. There was several bridges. I mean, it was easier just to build bridges and cross over than it was to go up and down. And it was, so the center of the Panama Isthmus was so undulating that you didn't have a long distance of flat ground anywhere out there. It's pretty incredible. But so now we get into the Culebra Cut here, as we can see on the ship here, and a couple of things that are interesting, because now you get into an area that is very narrow. It's an area that is arguably treacherous. There's a constant current there, and as we've learned, as you start getting bottlenecks, it increases the speed of the water and different things there. So on this graphic here, Andrew, there's a couple of things here, and again, let's see if they're still current the way things work there. But they talk about the master again is the person in charge of the ship. all the time, whereas you guys are the pilot in charge of it in the canal. But in the cut, are they supposed to be on the bridge with you guys? The captain, I guess.
Right. The only for the cut, the things that I like to say is, as we're coming out of Pedro Miguel Captain, we're going to make fast a tug, and again, this is referring to supers, ships with restricted visibility, certain anomalies with the ship. Then they might add extra resources. But in general, let's talk about a ship 90 feet and above. You get a cut tug on the stern, two people on the bow for emergency, because two is better than one.
Of course.
And need to let go that anchor. And they had um, speed restrictions, meeting restrictions, daylight restrictions.
Right.
There's all kinds of restrictions depending on the ship. LNG ships get two tugs the whole way. So that's mandatory tug assistant.
And real quick, let's just a moment for clarification here, because you've used this term a couple of times now. Make fast. Okay, what does that actually mean in terms of a ship pilot?
Oh no, to tie. I'm sorry. Make fast. Put your lines up, tie up to the ship. So we have quite a fleet of tugs, over 70 boats, and they range from 40 to 60 tons of bollard pull is how much power the ship can pull.
Right.
And different propulsions. I mean, a whole candy store.
Sure.
Different types from.
So when you tell the captain make fast, what are you saying to him with that term?
Fast, that means take the tug's line and attach it to the ship, which would be fit.
So make fast isn't a speed reference; it's more fasten or tie up.
Exactly.
Okay, cool, interesting. Because to me, it was a make fast, like hurry up. Well, no, it has nothing to do with speed. It's make fast. It's fasten to whatever resource you're going to.
And the skipper on the bridge, and a lot of times, they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go down for breakfast." Yeah, don't worry, go down for breakfast.
Right.
Two people on the bow for sure. The tug is tied up on the stern, two lines, bridle.
And they're mentioning traffic control. Is there a lot more control going on in there?
Yeah, it's all one way during the day, pretty much.
Okay.
All one way, daylight, clear cut. You can't meet anybody. And so there's different designations for that. What was the other thing I was going to tell you about?
Are there various different currents in different sections of the cut, or is it all kind of similar?
Turn is in the cut is what we get into some hydrodynamics. You want it close to the side. There's vertical walls on the side, and what that creates is an interaction between the ship's hull, the bottom, and the side of the cut, where you have some different hydrodynamics, which basically is bow cushion and stern suction. All right, as the ship gets close to the side and you're forcing water between a smaller gap and a bigger gap, so if you get way over, you can experience some steering difficulties for sure.
Okay, interesting.
Get over, you start hugging the bank. That's why the ideal thing is to stay in the middle, and because you will encounter the stern suction, and if you're running on full, and you have no emergency power in your back pocket there, and you get stern suction, the ship takes a shear, and that's what happened to the Ever Given or whatever.
Yeah.
Running fast, he got too close to one side, and you could put all the rudder you want, and all the power would not break that shear. That ship's going to the right.
Shear basically is like it's sliding in essence.
Yeah, that's that's the reason why they hit the Gamble Bridge.
No, they lost steering on that one. I responded to that one.
I remember you were port captain on that one, weren't you?
No, they lost steering.
Yeah, but you were port captain for that accident.
Right. I ran out there in the company car,
Right. On the secret road that Ricky likes. Yeah. So now, now we're in the cut there. We just pulled out, so I'll back it up a little bit. Give us time to talk about the Intrepid. Okay, the Intrepid, guys, is an aircraft carrier, and it's now a museum in New York. In fact, one of the Concords is sitting on the deck there as part of the exhibits there. But tell us about the Intrepid. What happened with that ship?
Yeah, they have a picture, and I'm trying to find uh, the records on that because it's nowhere in the BLI, nowhere, and it's right here in this turn here into Empire. This is, I think this is Empire here where he's turning. I can't tell. I can't see the screen very good. Anyways, from Culebra and Empire northbound, whatever happened, who knows? And I'm trying to get the records on that to find out exactly, because they're probably classified or whatever,
Sure.
and try to find out if the Navy has records of that and request them. But instead of making that left turn, they went straight into the bank. And there's a picture of the Intrepid on the bridge. If you go to the museum, and you can see the day the Intrepid hit the east bank of the Panama Canal.
That's amazing.
We just
That's
passed
absolutely-
Gamboa, right?
Yeah, we did. I backed it up a little bit there because we're getting ready to get the end of the cut there, which is then going into Gamboa. And then we're going to come across something interesting here as we get into that lake area. And it actually starts right about that area in Gamboa there is some of these submerged towns. And the first question I have to ask you, Andrew, regarding any of these submerged towns, are you able to see them from the bridge of the ship if you go over any of those areas? Can you see any structures down there on a clear day?
Years ago, you could see some stairs at Gorgona, but that's all been wiped out. And actually, Gorgona, there's only a portion of Gorgona that disappeared.
Right.
I think way inland and up at the 90-foot spot, looking at the old map and contours, it was quite a town, Gorgona.
Yes, it was.
David's relatives lived there, and there's Gorgona right there on the left of Gamboa. And I do remember seeing like some stairs. And
Interesting.
But that's all gone from the expansion. That was years ago. But Gorgona had quite a town, and that was further to the west. And I would imagine anywhere from 60 to the 90-foot plus range, there was there should be something in there.
I would think
But
so.
bigger and more impressive was Camp Otis and Camp Empire.
Yes.
Camp Elliott and Enterprise. Those were some amazing towns, and looking at the pictures, quite infrastructure, administration buildings, Quonset huts, parades.
Oh yeah. Oh, listen,
ballparks.
there was a whole article I read about that they had to pass a law regarding the limitation on liquor license to open up bars in places there because again, that was, part of to keep the population happy. They needed watering holes, and these towns were big enough that they had several of these, and a whole town laid out, and they had a theater, a church, it had a couple of different pubs and all. I mean, it was. And some of these places were areas for either refueling or for the Panama Railroad. In fact, there was some of these areas were built around the towns where the Las Cruces Trail met the Chagres River, and you could catch the boat there up to San Lorenzo and stuff. So, some of these towns, where people got really upset at the canal, it wasn't because these were canal towns per se. Some of these places had been around way before the Panama Canal was even started to be built, and unfortunately they were in a bad spot, man, and you had to move. But
yeah, Bohio is another example of a big town over there, and recently, saying in the last 10 years, I was diving in the Banana Channel and I saw like the remnants of some sort of buildings or structures
Right.
up there, Banana Channel, and but people that have dove in Buena Vista, there's a dump there.
Yeah.
And I see here that Duff has mentioned clay bottles in the bottle dump Gorgona. I don't know where that bottle dump is, but it'd be interesting to go up to Camp Otis or Camp Elliott,
sure.
and see what's left up there. A brass button,
Yeah,
Are there any dive clubs that do that dive in Panama?
No, you can't do that. You can't. That's canal waters, man.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Now-
And the other interesting thing is that, while we talk about the submerged towns, when we talk about Empire, for example, Empire was not a submerged town. Empire was way above the ground. But what happened? Over the years, when the canal was finished, and even during the final parts of the construction, remember one of the big problems was landslides. Okay, it went on for many, many years, and obviously to this day, you still have a dredging division because it's constantly moving anyhow. But what they ended up finding is that you had to make that much wider than the actual canal waters itself. So you had those steps and that grading out away, so that it wasn't such a steep incline that was prone to landslides. And so a lot of these areas, it was just because they're going to widen that so much, you had to get rid of those towns. Remember Empire and parts of Gorgon in that area there, Goethals had his house there, and he overlooked the construction area. Well, once they finished that and they realized, hey, we need to back this up another 200 yards because we got to cut this out in steps, that whole area is gone. But the cool thing was they didn't just, burn it down or they took it apart piece by piece and moved it all. And they rebuilt all that stuff later on. So, the efficiency of canal was everywhere, man. But, it was just really interesting there. And again, a couple other things here, talk about, some of the different situations of topography and stuff going through there. This is another one here, this maximum 500 meters or 2 ship length visibility. How does that work? And do you guys still use that same parameter, I guess?
Yeah, and they've become, that applies. Like I said, visibility, towability are the 2 key things in the canal. You got to be able to be towed, and you got to be able to see.
Sure.
Now, as the container ships get bigger, they've designed now the bridge forward. A lot of these big container ships circumvent that. That requirement is not a Panama Canal requirement. It's IMO visibility requirement.
Okay.
And so, you got to be able to see, where you're going. That's for sure. Some of these guys have come by with these, with the windmills, and and they have a camera. And they
Right.
go, we got a camera. And I go, no, man, that ain't gonna cut it. All
Not gonna cut it. Yeah, we're not gonna halt Panama Canal transiting because you wanted to sail with a GoPro. That's not the way that works. But so Vern's throwing in there that there's a picture of the Intrepid hitting the bank and show some sailors falling to the deck from the impact. That was a pretty some sharp shooting on that one. Somebody was paying attention there.
What year was that, guys?
During World War II, for sure.
Okay, interesting. That'd be interesting to find out what that is there. And again, talk about the mandates of the bridge, where the master or the commander of the ship, whoever that is, certain times that they must be present on the bridge and whatnot. Some traffic management here, and this kind of really is getting out of the Gaylord cut or the Culebra cut, which was kind of interesting here. And real quick, Vern is chiming in there, 1943. So yeah, you were right. Right in the middle of World War II was when that happened. So they were hurrying up and getting that ship from one theater to the other, which is really what the Panama Canal was originally built for by the Americans, was to get their Navy ships from one side to the other quickly. In this case, they were going a little too fast, and they ended up getting a little fender bender there. But
exciting coming up in the next few years if they go through with we need some new Navy ships for sure. And I understand the Trump class is going to be about 850 feet long and between 105 and 120 feet wide. So that's going to be interesting.
Wow, that'll be interesting. Well, we definitely be looking forward to you piloting one of those when it comes out there.
I'd love to get that for sure.
So one other piece involving with these submerged towns and again the ones up on Empire and whatnot was that in 1912 there was a depopulation order by President Taft. Now Roosevelt was no longer president. We're getting towards the end of the project now. We've started to fill up the Gatun Lake at this point. Remember, it's going to take a long time. It's not something that happens overnight. And part of it was to start getting rid of people. The construction is starting to wind down. You're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You realize you don't need as many people anymore, for one thing, right? And I'm assuming that they probably had some talks with Panama, and Panama's probably saying, hey, we don't want all these people here that built the canal. And the canals are like, well, we don't want them either.
At one time, there was more laborers than there were
Yes.
population.
And you think about that, what that would do to, if you suddenly say, hey, you're out of a job, now you go live in Panama City, and now you don't have a job, you don't have any food, and you're talking thousands of people, to a country of the size of Panama at that time was probably not going to work, So bottom line is that there was a lot of an exodus of the zone and of Panama around 1912. And part of that was us getting ready to now assume day-to-day operation of a canal and have a canal zone here. And we didn't need a whole bunch of laborers. Now thanks, but no thanks. The project's done. You got paid. It's time to move on. And so it'd be interesting to find out from Panama standpoint what happened and what Panama did to maybe avoid having to absorb all of these laborers as well. But we were talking earlier, and I'm going to kind of move kind of quickly through this real quick, because here's a couple of these other towns that we mentioned there. Old Gatun, of course, the original. Gatун's one has moved a couple of times, right? We've seen it recently with the new locks having to be displaced again. And in this case, it kind of just disappeared. But originally, Gatun was a town that was right at the base of where the Gatun Dam is right now. And so that was one of the first places to be relocated because, prior to that concrete part, which is what you see at the top there out of the water, below that is a massive 1/2 mile thick and 1 mile wide or 1 mile long earthen dam. And then they built the concrete piece at the very top of it. But they got rid of that area there, Old Gatun, area called Ahorca Lagarto. Hang the Lizard, they called it there. Lion and Tiger Hill was an area that they had there that got displaced. We talk about the Gorgona area, El Viejo Gorgona, right? We all grew up with the Gorgona out in the beaches, but not the original one. Matachin was a big area that the French used a lot. Remember, we found a big, gigantic warehouse there with a bunch of French equipment when we took over that was in really good shape. And then San Pablo. It's interesting thing about San Pablo. Remember our friend Akira that chimes in from Japan. He was initially doing research on that initial party that was going to Washington, the first diplomatic mission to Washington from Japan. And they stopped in San Pablo. That was a place they spent several days as they're doing their crossing, through the zone then, because there was no canal then. It was in the 1800s. But that was one of those towns, San Pablo, that's, just north of Gamboa, I think, that disappeared at this time. And then, of course, Empire and Baso Obispo, those disappeared simply because you had to widen that whole area in order to avoid all the landslides and stuff. So we were mentioning earlier, Andrew, you talked about the importance of using that anchor on occasion to slow your ship down, stop it, or help and avoid the drift. But one of the things that we also have learned, and again, correct me if this is not the case, but is it true then that in the lake, because Gatun Lake is basically a bunch of old trees, right? It's not like they cut everything down and then filled it up. They just basically block the river and let it over time start filling up. And so you had a bunch of dead trees and brush down there. So can you not drop anchors in the Gatun Lake? Is that correct on the big ships?
Oh, no, they do. You got to drop the anchor because they spend the night or the day.
Well, what they say here and what they talked about was in some areas of the Gatun Lake is they have these buoys, these anchoring buoys, I guess, and they say they tie up to those, or maybe that's changed. Maybe in the dredging channel or some areas they have. But one of the things they said in a lot of places that you don't want to drop an anchor because you'll lose it in all the trees and debris in there.
What I think you were reading about is the hand lines. The hand lines they tie up to the buoy. It might be too deep for the hand lines to drop anchor.
That was one of the things that
like sailboats and pleasure craft. But they expanded the anchorage in Gatun. They have cleared out the trees, and there's
so that's what it probably is then, that with dredging they've cleared an area there where you can drop anchor, but initially it probably was so full of trees all around there that you probably I'll bet you could probably find some anchors from back in the day in that area that somebody dropped it in.
Yeah, there's chain, there's wire. They pick up once in a while. I was on the Celebrity cruise ship and we got something stuck in the anchor.
Wow.
Pulling a couple years ago. I don't remember what it was that was in the anchor, but we have a procedure with that. I call up the tug, lower the anchor, and the tug works. I think it was a cable, probably a cable. So there's always a cable they pull up, and unless I'm dreaming it, I think a a jungle cat came up the anchor chain
Oh no.
one day out at the lake. I don't know if I'm dreaming that
What,
I
it was probably
saw
out there swimming.
Would
Like,
that
well,
be
jaguars
like
will swim a lot.
Jaguar, I was going to say, a jaguar
Yeah.
swims.
Yeah, certainly does.
that. If I'm not, that happened. Of course, they get killer bees out there on the anchor windlass.
Sure.
But lately, you'll pull up a cable, and the rule is if you don't see the end of the cable, you can't proceed. If you can see both ends of the cable, then you can continue. So,
Okay. That's
yeah,
funny.
'cause you don't want that cable dragging across the floor.
No, certainly
So,
not.
cables, and there was a company out there farming those. If you think about it, any tree that you see now is a hardwood because all the soft limbs are gone.
Yeah, certainly.
Out there, it could be purple heart, cocobolo, guaiacan.
Yeah, no kidding.
You see in the lake today is a hardwood.
Wow, that's a guaranteed profit.
What's that?
So that's a guaranteed profit if you can pull all that stuff up. You're going to sell that for sure.
Session from that, but then they stopped it, and they were making hardwood floors, and that was all going straight to Asia.
Wow,
Japan actually bought all that. I remember that maybe a decade ago or so.
Interesting.
But now with the new lake that they're going to build with Rio Indio, I asked, "What are you going to do with all the trees?" They said, "We have to clear them out." It's not like Gatun Lake because they don't want anything. They're going to be digging. I don't know how long a tunnel. There's going to be a tunnel from the lake.
A big aqueduct.
To
26 kilometers, I believe. That tunnel.
Interesting.
Huge.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's amazing. All right, so now we've gotten through the lake now, and we're getting ready to complete our transit. So as you see on the screen there, we're looking at the Gatun Locks and the Atlantic descent. Okay, remember, guys, we're up at the top now on the Gatun Lake, and now we're going to start descending back into sea level.
Navy Island. That's an interesting landmark there, Navy Island.
Yeah, tell us about Navy Island, because that was mentioned in this research article that I pulled up.
Yeah, couple things with Navy Island. That's not the original name, and I forgot the name of it. But Navy Island I have the design. They were thinking about a seaplane base.
Okay.
And I think they started construction on some piers, and there might be some floating docks over there that were part of that. It's all washed ashore. So that was where it got Navy Island for. They never went through with the designs, if I'm not mistaken. But that was what they were planning on doing, making it a seaplane base. During some recent bottom mapping, on the north end of that island, they found that Spanish fort that you were talking about. A part of the fort, there's a moat that was around that fort, and that is visible in the contour mapping. So that was pretty interesting.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had Paul Shamella join us he was a Navy SEAL, and he was in charge of naval special warfare in Panama right after Just Cause. And one of the things he mentioned was that they built a new live fire area off of Empire and around the lake area, or an Empire area there. And it was a live fire area, and it was one of the only places where they could actually take their boats, those Navy SEAL boats that they have, and actually shoot their 50 calibers, towards the shore to practice, extraction or whatever the case is. Do you ever see any of that kind of stuff going on out there nowadays, or have you seen any remnants of that stuff?
Well, I'm trying to, first of all, figure out where it's got to be on the west side.
Yes.
Of the lake, and
I think he said it's actually by Pedro Miguel somewhere. It's all before the cut.
Yeah, that's probably by the 60s, 69 area, Buoy 69. In that area, off to the west, is where our friend Carl Davis had the Jungle Land boat, and there's some interesting, like, small cuts that were dredged out, and when the lake is up, it's like a Disneyland ride. You go through a miniature Panama Canal with all the canopy trees over. So I wonder if it was back in that area.
Could be. Sounds like it would be usable for some that type of training because you have access to it with small boats and stuff and whatnot. But it was funny because he mentioned that the guy that's now the ambassador at the time worked for a different company that was hired to clean up that area because they left such a mess with all the cartridges and ammo boxes and shell casings and everything because there was apparently, in the late 90s or mid 90s was quite the training area for the Navy and is for that kind of stuff. But that would be interesting to see if you'd come across that. But anyhow, so let's go ahead and work our way into
Continue on the lake real quick. I wanted to mention there was some rumors of a submarine base or a submarine bunker or something in the lake somewhere. And years ago we went ashore on the east side behind Buoy 69, and we came across some structures, where it was definitely right by the railroad tracks, and I'm not sure if that was the Darien radio station. They had a lot of big radio towers for the Navy.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if that set of buildings, it had a generator room, and it had a workshop. And so I don't know. It had a small pier. I don't know what that building was. I wish I knew more information about it.
Well, when he joined us the other, again, a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned that there was one near Gamboa that they had to go and take down with explosives, and it was an older tower that was no longer being used. So you might be right. There's probably several of those naval type towers. Antennas. It's an interesting thing when you take antennas, you can create a grid of antennas, from vast distances, and they become a huge antenna themselves.
In Summit was a big base there, and a big facility, and I think that's where he took the tower down.
That's what he was mentioning because it was over there off of Gamboa somewhere, which makes sense that would be the one.
That was a cool little town in there. It was just kind of tucked away inside there. Summit. I don't know if it's Navy or Army or what. I
think it was Navy because he said they sent the SEALs in to take it down, so it was probably one of their own facilities that they were, good way to practice. Take down a tower, which you're going to learn how to put your explosives in and take it down anyway for war. So, but so anyway, so now we're looking at this image here of the return flight, right? We're going down the grand staircase, as they call it here. 3 sequential continuous chambers, lower vessels 85 to 90 feet back to sea level. And you mentioned that the walls here are not the same as on the Pacific side. Then that there's
I'm talking about the approach wall on the north side of Gatun. Does let water flow through it.
Okay.
Completely. But much better than Miraflores because there are some pilings there.
Gotcha.
In that design.
Gotcha. And here again, it's just reinforcing that bedrock, which is why they separated the two sets of locks there. Now, this is interesting, and I don't know again if because some of the stuff we're finding out here seems to be from old rules and regulations on the canal, but it mentions here that now that you're leaving, if you have a large ship and smaller ships in the chamber at the same time, that the smaller ships go in front. Is that correct? And is that common?
That's what I mentioned. Remember what I was telling you about?
Oh, okay. That's okay. Yeah, here it goes. Now it makes sense.
Yeah. So now there's an emergency. Those hand lines in front, gravity down, you open the doors in front, they can escape.
Yes. Okay. That totally makes sense. Yeah. And then they talk about, again, with your handling of the lines and stuff, and those, they call them the monkey fist, which is a big giant knot in front of a rope that you use to throw. And in this case, because as they approach coming from the lake, they're at lake level with you, right? And so therefore it's easy to toss those ropes versus in Miraflores where the ship is below and the lock chamber is up above because they're going to eventually fill it up and lift the ship up. So it makes that rope exchange easier.
You got to toss because nowadays they let go the lines and they do the operation all over again. When you go into the empty chamber, remember, the full chamber. It depends on the direction you're going.
Right. Because from the northbound ones, they're going into that full chamber and they're level with the line handlers.
Right. And then
easier toss would be on the other side.
Yeah. The big, the greater throw.
Right. Right.
And the thing is, they don't walk with you. They used to walk, but I don't think they walk anymore with keeping the lines made fast. You know, you
Right.
take in the small boats line, and sometimes they used to walk with you, but
Interesting.
not anymore.
Interesting. So then, as you can see on the video here, so we're getting towards the end there. He's got one more chamber to go, and then he's going to go ahead and pass on through. And then we'll go ahead and get out onto that line out there. And so basically what we're looking at here now is, you get through the Gatun locks, and then you got to pass through, which I guess is similar to the Pacific side. The Cristobal, the Colognes, and all that is past the locks. Right, the locks aren't right at the end of the full Panama Canal per se. Just like in Balboa, I guess you go through Miraflores, and then a ways down you go through the ports and Balboa and everything here. And,
Right.
And so the two big areas that you're going to pass here that they mentioned there are Mount Hope and of course Limon Bay is that entrance there. But Mount Hope, in essence, is it safe to say that Mount Hope was more of a supply area for the canal zone, I guess, for cold storage
Mount Hope
and supplies?
was, if you think about it, that was the start of the French Canal.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the French Canal. And if you look on the video here, you'll see a small, I don't know if you can see it if the crane's blocking it, a small tributary, or that was also the French Canal, original French Canal, off to the left. So the original French Canal comes into where Pier 16 and the Cristobal Yacht Club and all that. That was the original French Canal and into Mount Hope. So they were going to start there. And
right. And we got it here on full screen now. And now this is the wall you're talking about, this extended wall to the right. That's the one that has water that can flow through it better.
Yeah, not completely invisible, but at least a little better than sure.
And this video, unfortunately, cut off here, so I switched over to this other video. And now, as you can see, this is the interesting part, that today, right, the older video wouldn't have shown this because the new locks hadn't been built yet. But this is where they merge. On coming in northbound on the Pacific side, the new locks are on your left. And when you exit on the Atlantic side, the new locks are on your right. So there's kind of that crossover at some point in the lake there. But this is where you're mentioning that is that where you're seeing it on the left there, that little bit of opening, is that where you're thinking that French Canal is?
No, it's further south. Yeah.
Oh, further south, a little bit further back then.
Yeah.
And which is kind of hard to see on here, but you can kind of pick up where there's a bit of an opening over there on the left.
See it there.
Yeah, and this is where it switches over to the other ship.
Yeah, the cranes are in the way.
Yeah. Now, here's what's interesting, and the reason why I also wanted this part here on full view. So now we've cleared the locks, okay? We are not out of the Panama Canal yet, but the line handlers, all those people, they have nothing left to do. And so look, if you see on the right-hand side there, you got a bunch of people assembling there. They're waiting for the boat to come and pick them up. And then, of course, at the end there, the pilots, yourself and these guys, are going to get off as you approach the breakwater. But this is kind of interesting that these guys are getting off because there's no work for them on this ship anymore, but they got to get back over to pick up another ship that's getting ready to come out of the lake as well, right? Is that kind of the way they're set up here?
Yeah, I think a typical shift, they do 2, maximum 3.
Okay. And you can see the boats right next to them. And little by little, they're getting down. They're getting away. And now orange suits are your people that work on the ship, correct?
No, those are the bosuns. The bosuns have the white shirt and orange cap.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And something else I noticed here that they actually, the cranes are operating real quick. I'm going to back it up for just a moment. You notice the cranes are working there on the ship.
Provisions. They're getting provisions, as you see there. Yeah.
Okay. Is that maybe some
from
of
the supply ships?
Yeah. So is that something that the things that Maurice Cohen's company does, maybe?
I think his is more for repair. So if you got a hole in the boat, call Maurice.
Gotcha.
Now, if you want tomatoes or fresh coleslaw, then you call these guys El Rey. El Rey, that's how the old man started. He was a ship chandler.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Ray supermarkets?
Yeah.
No way.
That's interesting. What a fascinating history.
Agaropoulos. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The old man,
as you can see now, we're approaching that breakwater now. Okay.
Right.
Are you guys still on the ship at this point?
No. We get off 2 miles south of the breakwater at the mole or breakwater, where the signal station's at. That's
Okay.
where we.
Interesting. So the ship captain, the normal captain is or whoever he chooses to on his crew is putting it through the breakwater and out to the ocean.
Exactly.
Okay. That's fascinating. That is absolutely fast. And again, a typical transit then is about 10 hours. Is that give or take? Is that about?
8 to 10 hours. That's correct.
That is amazing. That is amazing. What has been your biggest challenge taking a ship through?
Well, right now the big thing is in the new locks, we have kind of mastered the new locks, but still a big challenge is there's no approach wall at Agua Clara. So with wind and current, that is quite a challenge getting a ship in there with no locomotives. You're just using the tug.
Wow.
Your
Right.
side of eye, and you got to line that up, and the margins are excruciatingly small. So I can say, on a big ship, very limited. We don't have bow and stern thrusters,
Right.
so like a cruise ship. So very maneuverable. Cruise ships, shallow draft, very powerful, and they do a good job of getting in. But put yourself with a bulk carrier, 50 feet of draft, no bow thruster, and 2 tugs, plus the assisting tugs, to get into quite small. You got to be deadpan straight on there.
Sure. Sure. Okay, and now put you on the spot here. Do you remember the first ship you transited the canal in?
Oh, I do. I was 225. We have quite a thorough and extensive and probably one of the best training programs in the maritime world.
Okay.
We have full-time active pilots as instructors. We have full bridge simulators and man model, and a system that is created over 14 years of experience before you're able to take anything through 14 years. So
Wow.
the steps are from 225, the tuna boat.
Yep.
And my first job was a U.S. Army LCM, one of the big ones.
Nice.
Southbound. That was one of my first solos, going on there solo.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, it was probably out of Fort Sherman or something.
Very nice.
225, 400, 526, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 is up through the old canal, and then 10 and 11 is in the new canal.
Okay. And the biggest ship you've taken through, what would you think is?
Yeah, 1,215 feet by 167 in beam, 50 feet in draft.
That's incredible. That's
Yeah, over 1,200, over 167 feet in beam and 50 feet in draft.
Right on. Okay, well, very good, Ricky. What do you got, man? Ricky's been.
I'm over here listening because I'm learning all the time when Andrew comes on. No, Andrew, I read on the paper that there was more like an El Nino thing called what do you call that? Wellness, or that happened in the Pacific, and they were talking about I think it's the tides that could affect Canal.
One of the things, El Nino is a couple of things. It's rain, it's wind, and that upwelling that you get in the
upwelling. That's it. Yes.
Yeah, that upwelling was skipped a couple years ago, and so I'm not sure of the long-term effects. I'm not a marine biologist, but somebody needs to see, what the effects were of that, because that constant wind blowing during dry season, it just pushes all that surface water out of the bay.
Sure.
And that's where the cold water comes surging up to replace it from the bottom. Mineral rich. You get that red tide. You get all kinds of funky things going on. But what I wanted to tell you was that uh, this the El Nino that took place. I don't know if it was El Nino or whatever it was. The worst drought in in the hit in the fifth. It was the fifth worst drought. Just to be clear, the fifth worst drought in canal history. But it got a lot of flack, a lot of
Yes.
social media this, social media this.
Oh, they blew it up,
But
man. That was the end of the canal and everything.
yeah, okay, they reduced the transits. They did reduce the transit, and they said, and they had to cut the draft. The draft was not cut 1 inch on the old canal.
Interesting. Okay.
Old Canal maintained 12.04 during that entire drought. Yes, they were limited the number of transits, but the draft was not affected. So what in essence says the canal operated at maximum draft of the old canal, not at maximum capacity, but the draft was limited in the transiting Neos. Yes,
Right.
they did limit their
Sure.
draft,
Sure.
but not the canal.
Right. Well, because you could control the water level to a certain extent. Obviously, you're subject to the drought, but you limit the transits because remember, it's 55 million gallons of water being dumped out every time you're putting a ship through there. So that's where the problem is. If you knock off 10 transits a day, well, that's 5 billion gallons or 500 billion, 500 million gallons of water you're saving. And so
That the canal expansion deepened and widened the reaches and the project depth of the channel, and that afforded uh, the old locks to maintain 12.04. And so people, it was business as usual if you got a spot,
right.
to load your cargo as you please, as you did. And another interesting thing this year, we did not reduce maximum draft during dry season 1 inch. The canal operated at full capacity 24/7, 365 this year.
So you should expect a bigger profit at the end of the year because they probably account for a lower amount for dry season, and because that didn't happen, you
Yeah.
could,
I guarantee you they're going to be making gangbusters more cash this year.
Nice.
It was just a boom. And this is a cycle.
15%.
But I think they're doing the right thing on the Rio Indio project, to look ahead. And why not dam up that river?
Heck yeah.
And let's have a backup to the backup.
Right on, right on. Well, listen, Andrew, this has been amazing. But before we go, I want to talk briefly about this project that we've talked about it a couple times here on the show. Ricky and I have this museum project you're working on. Give us the rundown of what that is and what you're planning on and where you're at with it right now.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. And I think this is going to be the debut because there's a lot of momentum on it. And I've had a lot of feedback. I've had a lot of visitors, and I've talked to a lot of people. And for me personally, I like to say this is the greatest engineering feat since the construction of the canal.
No kidding.
All right. And what this dream is you come down to Panama, you visit Panama, you see the canal, how it is. It's pristine, it's beautiful, it's lush, it's filled with water. But that is not the birth of our Panama Canal. And I want to bring to living life a scale model, 140 feet long, 8 feet wide, down to the last leaf in detail, researched hours, hundreds of hours of research,
right?
Accuracy beyond belief in miniature. That's
Love
right.
it.
Over 400 pieces of rolling stock with the original 260 mogul type locomotives pulling the 2021 dirt cars across the bottom of the cut. That's what I am working on. And we need to commemorate the blood, sweat, and tears of this canal, what's brought the country to its feet and the pride of the nation. How did it start? And I want to bring this and other this is the main display, but in this museum, we'll talk about the construction pieces, construction magic,
Sure.
and the defense of the canal in miniature. There'll
Yeah.
be other displays, interactive, and if you all want to reference, look at Miniature World in Hamburg, Germany, the #1 museum in Germany with 1.5 million visitors a year. I'm going to try and make something, not exactly that scale, but something remarkable in construction, in detail, in artistry, and that's what I'm looking at doing. I have a couple buildings in mind where to house this project. I'm looking for volunteers. I'm looking for ideas. I'm looking for creative contact people. As you know, we'll be collaborating, me, you, and Willie, and Ricky as well with his architectural ingenuity. So there's a very big potential here, a very big interest for people to, as Ricky mentioned, lots of tourism going to be drawn here. And this is the ripe time for this project
100%.
because online interest for defense, for the railroad, for canal construction,
Bunkers.
history, for maintaining history, for
Yeah.
providing the future.
Could not agree with you more, man. 100% it is. That's one of the things that we've recognized in the last 25, 30 years. There's been a concerted effort to erase the American history of the canals and the canal. And there really is a need to bring this back and show people what this was, what the effort was there. And Ricky and I've had the good fortune of getting a sneak peek at what you're working on there, and let me tell you guys, it looks amazing just in the early start, man. When this is finally done and ready for the world to see, it's really going to give you such a great context of the size and magnitude of this project, And remember, guys, you're seeing
the Gold Hill and Contractors Hill is over my head in size.
Yes.
The detail is down to the last blade of grass. As you look at it, you will live and breathe
100%.
the heat and construction, the smoke, the steam, the noises, the sweat that these men and women put in for the construction of the canal. It's 8 feet
you
wide.
You think of the challenge that you have to build the bridge and the tunnel today in 2025, 2026, and you're talking about 1903, 1905, when you had nowhere near this technology or the knowledge of the area, and yet they were still be able to do something that is just, absolutely incredible. It really is. I'm excited for that and continued success on that, and appreciate you letting me help out with it.
The old saying, build it and they will come.
Yeah, no kidding.
Absolutely.
It is in my garage. I have 40 feet of table laid out, and 3 other 40-foot tables ready to go.
Yeah.
So it's massive in scope, in costs, and effort,
and in realism.
We're going to be making a white website. We're going to make a soft opening on presenting it.
Sure.
Once we're home for this.
Yeah, well, hopefully next on your next Panama Canal report, we'll have a progress check on it, and be able to offer some footage of it and everything. Because from what I've seen, man, it looks just as good as that backdrop behind us there on Sosa Hill. You really see the nice. Like you said, you cover every blade of grass. One of the pictures that you sent us actually was a video, and you were panning through some tree canopies and then lowering it down, and you really could see the depth in that while it's sitting in your garage. It's not even complete. It's not even lit properly yet. And you could still feel that height of that tree, and it was solid. It was there, and it was part of a real picture. It was really cool, man. I'm looking forward to you getting this thing done, and I appreciate you letting me be a part of it, because it's right up my alley. I love, Panama Canal history and construction history, and man, if this doesn't do it justice, man. So congrats to you on that. And again, thanks for taking the time to do this. I think we got a nice understanding of the canal. There's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of knowledge for you guys, man. You guys got to know what you're doing all the time. It's all about preparedness. And I guess the one key that we learned from all this is anticipation, right? When you're driving a ship, you have to anticipate things. You're not going to react at the last second. A ship takes a long time to move, and
you nailed that right on the head. like anything properly done, anticipation is the key. You need to be looking not 10 feet in front of you, but 2 miles down,
Right.
sometimes 3 miles ahead of you,
Yeah.
and know what is coming up in the
Sure.
next mile, 2 or 3 ahead of you.
Heck
Anticipation
yeah. And you don't see it half the time because it's underwater.
and concentration.
Yeah, no kidding, man. And you don't see that anticipation. A lot of it you don't see. We talked a lot today about these currents that push you in one direction or the other. You don't see that. Okay, but you know it's there because you have that experience as a canal pilot, and so therefore
And you got to have plan A, B, and C. I tell the guys on my crew, on my boats, the Sea Panama charters, to always have plan A, B, and C, and don't wait till the last minute
right
to make a decision. Have those things ahead planned out.
Sure. And when you think about it that way, it makes sense what you mentioned about 14 years of experience before you're handling those big ships by yourself, because it takes that long to really recognize what those currents do to a ship of a small size versus big size and time of the year. And again, we learned that, the salt water versus fresh water, what that does and all those things. So, man, it was really cool. I like I said, guys, if you didn't get a chance to see the entire show, go back and watch the replay, because if you can pass the test, you actually become a Panama Canal pilot. You are now eligible to run ships. The 14-year rule is gone now. You just got to watch Happy Hour at the Balboa Yacht Club, and you're eligible to run a ship through. So, but anyway, kidding, of course. This is a job that you got to know what the hell you're doing. This guy has many years of education and experience, and we're just really fortunate to be able to call him a friend and somebody that can help us learn these things and learn all the cool things about the Panama Canal, man. So anyway, Andrew, give us some closing remarks, man, because we ran long on this one, but a great show nonetheless.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to you guys. You guys are doing remarkable work. You guys are the backbone of keeping this history alive. And I just wish this gets bigger and better. And it needs to be worldwide. What we have in essence is a little piece of Americana and Panama that have really exceeded expectations in all aspects of world commerce, of shipping, of maritime lore. This needs to be remembered. It needs to be commemorated. It needs to be celebrated. And the job that you guys are doing, I'm just so proud that I know you guys. And it's just phenomenal. And
I appreciate it, man.
You just need to keep going. We all need to keep going and commemorate this fine effort of mankind.
Indeed. We were fortunate. I always say that. We were fortunate. We were blessed to be able to be raised in the zone and be able to experience that and live that and be able to tell other people that story. And Ricky and I are really fortunate to have this technology now that we can throw these stories out there and just reminisce and learn about the past and keep it alive, right? So it doesn't fade away, because we know history does tend to fade away, but we can do what we can to keep it here. And many people now will be able to watch this and understand how the Panama Canal works and how you get a ship through there. And we're going to learn about how a canal was built and how the houses were built. And so a lot of great stuff. But again, Andrew, thank you so much. I know you've had a long day. You were driving a ship through the canal, and now you talked about driving ships through the canal. So get yourself some rest, enjoy the beer. You've earned it, and looking forward to your next visit on the Panama Canal Report for us, man.
All right, bro.
All right,
everybody. Ricky, Willie.
Right back to you, brother.
And
you got it. Cheers, man. Take care.
All right. Ciao.
All right, man. Ricky, that was good, man. It ran long, but man, it was. We know how that Panama Canal works. We know where those ropes are, who grabs them, what they do, where not to go, what to do. Man, it was.
A show like this, you can't limit the time. You've got to let it
tell the
go
story
and talk about the story, right? Because there's so much to cover that you would never do it in a regular TV show.
100%.
You cannot 100%.
Yeah, no
So
doubt about it.
Thank you very much, Andrew Eftimitis. We appreciate that here at the
Yeah, we're
Panama.
very fortunate to have a friend like that that can give us that insight like that, and he put a lot of effort into it as well. The three of us did. We worked on it all week. We were bouncing ideas back and forth, and so it was great. A lot of participation out there. Thank you guys for joining us and enjoying this with us. Don't forget next week. Jim Duffus will be joining us. He was chiming in here tonight quite a bit. He's going to tell us about these Gatun locks, right? It's a big, giant concrete bathtub there that was that's a lot of places. A lot of this started in the Atlantic side was where the construction seemed to have originated. A lot of it. So
the French started.
Yep. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to learning about the Gatun locks and everything. And then, of course, more Panama Canal stuff later on there. But the Chiva bus went by, Ricky, so telling us to get out of here, man. Close it out,
We got to
brother.
go. That was a good show, guys. Hey, thank you very much. We'll see you guys next week. Again, we appreciate all your comments, participation, and most of all, being on our show. Thank you very much.
Cheers, everybody. Salute.
Cheers.
And we're off. All right.